Good evening. I'd like to call to order this board special meeting public hearing on June 17th, 2024 at 7:05 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Miss Lee? Here. Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley? Here. Mr. Tavera?
Here.
We have a roll call, and I will turn it over to Dr. Kimmons for our fiscal year 24 amendment budget.
Good evening, Board. Thank you so much for the time this evening. We, in being in compliance with the Illinois State Board of Education rules, as well as those of the accounting principles of our auditors, are required to audit our budget if we anticipate that we are going to go over the 10% threshold that the Board of Education originally had approved. So the process for amending a budget is the same as it is when we approve a budget. The school district is required to have the amended budget on display for 30 days prior to adoption. The amended budget was placed on display beginning Tuesday, May 7th. Looking at the date today of June 17th, we are in compliance with that 30-day rule. Legal notice must be published in the Chicago Tribune, Lake County News Sun, which is our local newspaper. That is a requirement. It needs to be of local circulation. That notice did go out on Tuesday, May 7th, and also a public hearing date needs to be set, which is what we are participating in right now at this time. Listed before you and also posted is the amended budget publication and the classified ads. It is in a specific location as well as how it's placed, in addition to the font size and style, and we've met all of those compliance requirements. Also, when we look at the continuation of the process, the final budget must be approved by the Board of Education by June 30th, and the final budget must also be submitted to our Regional Office of Education in addition to our Illinois State Board of Education. Those will be done pending Board of Education approval this evening to be in compliance. We go to the why. As I stated earlier, funds that exceed more than 10% of the original approved Board of Education approval values will require an amendment as we anticipate what those expenditures would be. We're anticipating to go over by about 10 to 12%. If we did not participate in this process and we did go over that threshold, it would be a finding in our audit, which then has other implications for us, and that is not in alignment with best practice or with how we want to administer how we function. So how does this happen? The budget is an estimate at the beginning of the year of revenues and expenditures and other sources. We receive additional grant funds. As a result of the additional grant funds, there are expended funds that go with those revenues. The money comes in. We then want to expend it to support our programs and instruction here in the district, and we can't always anticipate what those numbers will be. So as we look at an overall fiscal 24 amended budget summary, our expenditures overall do not exceed our revenues. We will continue to monitor the financial climate of the school district as well as our finances. We will maintain our fiscal purchasing and spending prudence and also adhere to the Board of Education policies in alignment with that. And at this point, the administration is recommending a balanced fiscal 24 amended budget. This is the form that will be submitted to Illinois State Board of Education. In the right-hand box in the upper right-hand corner, it says balanced budget, no deficit reduction plan is required. There are boxes below in which the Board of Education members, depending on how they would vote supporting or not supporting the budget, that is listed. This is the summary sheet, and again, a balanced budget, no deficit reduction plan is required. This is a deficit reduction summary sheet that is also required and submitted, and this chart just specifically lists that we've met all the requirements as we complete that form, and everything saying okay is the best rating scale that you could receive for this procedure. And just wanted to bring forward again our mission statement of what we're about, and the business office has supported and continues to support our work of inspiring and empowering students to construct a thriving future. Are there any questions about the proposed amended budget?
Hearing none, thank you very much. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments are accepted up until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting. Public commenter is contacted to confirm identity, and a link to the electronic public comment form is found online. We did not have any electronic public comment for this hearing. Do we have any local public comment for this hearing? Hearing none, we will now adjourn at 7:10 p.m. All right, now I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education in the Round Lake High School Media Center on June 17th, 2024 at 7:10 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Miss Lee? Here. Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Devera?
Here.
All right, and first up is our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is an approval of the meeting agenda. I do have one edit I do need to make for number 3, communications to the board, section D, the CEDAW governing board recap. We're going to need to move that one to our July meeting because Mrs. Larson is unavailable to present that governing board recap. So if we're going to need to move that. So if I can get a motion to approve the amended meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Devera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries. We have an approved agenda, and first up on that is communications to the board, and we have presenter, looks like Dr. Apgar, and our therapy dogs in Round Lake 116. Yay, poochies.
So how fun is this? So Dr. Rowling bet me that I couldn't bring 3 dogs to a board meeting and get away with it. So
You could
No,
have gotten
think-
like 6 in here, and we'd have been fine.
right. So thank you to the board and Dr. Mendoza for allowing me to give this presentation. So tonight with us we have some very special guests. So we have Ms. Carla Gustafson and Scooby. We have Ms. Julie Martin and Stevie Nicks, great name. And then we have Ms. Karen Zimmerman and Jet. So apparently other dogs is Jet's kryptonite, so we're gonna make sure that they're separated tonight. I also have with me a very talented behavior interventionist, Miss Ashley Harp from Round Lake Middle School, and she is responsible for the dogs being here tonight. So thank you, Ashley. So social emotional learning does not always look like a lesson plan. Schools can weave SEL into every moment of the day, and for us tonight, that is therapy dogs. So I learned a lot as I put this presentation together, because a lot of times we just see the dogs and we don't recognize the handlers like we should, because the therapy dog teams. So it's very important that the handler and the dog have that relationship to bring that special experience to our schools. So one of the things that I looked at is how are I know. I don't really need to do this.
Bring the dogs around. Yes. Okay, yeah, we'll bring
Yeah, they what the dogs brought around.
Do you want to go this way and she'll go this way? This is how we do it in the classroom too. Is like sometimes the teacher will continue teaching and we bring them around.
And that is why Miss Harp is here tonight. So,
And we'll make sure that everyone on this side gets them as well.
so what are the requirements? So therapy dogs are certified by either the Alliance of Therapy Dogs International, or Pet Partners. So as we look at insurance as the dogs come into the buildings, insurance is carried through the certification organization. So in many cases, that's Alliance of Therapy Dogs. Vaccination records must be submitted and available at all times. And there are certain rules and guidelines that the handlers and the dogs have to adhere to, like they have to be 2 feet apart at all times. And like I said, I've been told that Jet needs to be like 10 feet apart. Jet's very social. So especially at the elementary level, as therapy dogs go into classrooms, they're given a PowerPoint presentation on what therapy dogs are and why they're there and what their interaction will be like with the dog. So you can see the slide on the screen that's presented to students. So what is the student experience? It really depends on the comfort level of the student. So the dogs are available for hugs, belly rubs, just a presence. And sometimes students feel more comfortable reading to a dog or practicing their Spanish to the dog than they are people. So in some cases, they teach the dog Spanish. They say nine hund. So sometimes just a simple interaction is what is important. So in some cases, students receive an education on what therapy dogs are in the classroom. And then in other cases, the dogs are brought to a central location where specific students who may have IEP needs, SEL needs, or programmatic needs with behavioral concerns are brought to the dog. So in Round Lake area schools at Pleviac, unfortunately, in 2022, 2023, we had some students pass away. And to help students and staff with that grieving process, we brought in therapy dogs. Therapy dogs are also used for student regulation, petting the dog, and sometimes students are more comfortable telling the dogs how they feel than they are our staff. At Beach, one of the therapy dogs, Maya, had surgery, and is used to illustrate to students that even though Maya had a surgery and something had to be fixed, she could still be loved. And then students read to therapy dogs, and then specific students are provided access to the dogs. Indian Hill, the therapy dogs were used as rewards for reading goals. Reading to dogs and reading proficiency based on that experience is very important here in the district, and the dogs are used consistently for that reason. Students with significant behavioral needs are given time with the dogs, and student in specific programs like our instructional program are provided time. I'm gonna let Ms. Harp talk about Round Lake Middle School real quick.
So what I've created is a sign-up form that I send out about each quarter where teachers have an opportunity to sign up for their classes. It fills up very quickly. We have certain teachers that can kind of be hoggy about it. So it's like, I kind of have learned when their preps are, so I try to avoid at that time. So that way a lot of staff get in. If we have students that have gone through trauma, they've been hospitalized, if a family member has died, if a pet has died, we make sure that they get some one-on-one time. They might walk around the building with us, or we'll visit their classroom kind of like unannounced so they don't realize it's for them. Kind of just varies for each one. The students in our gold program really love this, especially when they've earned it. It's rare that they don't. They love reading to the dog one-on-one, getting that separate time to be pulled out into my office. They'll love it. We've even had a class, well, they'll incorporate lesson plans with the dogs. We had one where they made jokes. And each kid, it was one of our special ed classrooms, and it was really cute. Like each kid got to practice like their social, like speaking in front and telling jokes to both Carla and Scooby, which was amazing. Yeah, our Spanish speaking classrooms, they love it when the dogs come in. The staff love it. Even we've had staff sign up if they're like having a hard time, like they want their own time. I'm open to it. I mean, the dogs are there for everybody. I love my position. This is an extra bonus. So yeah, weekly. They come either weekly, monthly, or whenever fits best in their schedule, and we just work around it.
So I wanted to end with this picture. If you look at this band class, look at the little white face right in the middle.
That was so fun.
Yeah. What a great
Tsunami of kids.
Yeah.
what a great visitor to that classroom. And then we also put the therapy dogs in the student yearbook. So you can see the dogs there, and then Duff, which is one of Ms. Zimmerman's dogs, is pictured there as well.
Duff recently retired.
Yeah.
So he was in the 8th grade section.
Right? Any questions?
I do have a few questions, and I apologize in advance if you talked about it, because honestly, I was not paying attention at some points. I was watching the dogs. So, are the therapy dogs available during summer school as well? Because I know we have summer classes.
They could be, yes. If there was a need and availability of the dogs, we would definitely provide that.
We haven't done so far.
So far, no, we have not.
Does know that the dogs are available to sign up?
We can definitely work on that. Some of our staff who arrange the dogs, and I should also say that Miss Sarah Breen is not here tonight, but she is also instrumental in bringing therapy dogs into the district. Those individuals don't always work in the summer, but we could definitely coordinate that. Yes.
We have students and families, situations that happen in the summer as well. So just making sure that the dogs are available.
Yeah, I would be happy to make them available.
Okay.
Thank you for making that suggestion.
Yes. Do you have a question?
Oh, I just wanted to add that, to Alliance of Therapy Dogs or whichever organization and put in a request for a therapy dog visit. And you just name your parameters and then they send out a blast, an email blast to their teams, and if the teams are available, they'll respond directly to you.
I'm sure you'll work on that procedure.
I absolutely will.
All right. So I mentioned one of the dogs retired. What is how often are the dogs doing therapy? Like they do it 3 or 4 years and you retire them out, or how does the dog retire?
Yeah, she just turned 12.
I lied.
Doesn't look a day over five.
No, he does not.
His health deteriorated to the point where he just physically can't move amongst the kids anymore. So that's why we had to
I feel that. I feel that, not being able to move among the kids.
Fortunately, Jet, I pushed Jet where he's very young to be a therapy dog. But I had him tested just the minute he was eligible. Because he was still working through a couple things. So that's, I just didn't want to disappoint the students because this is so important to us to be able to come.
And the bond that they've built is amazing. So Jet is wearing our entrepreneurship made his neckerchief. Thank you. The kids, they created this huge card where the art students drew, and then all the kids, I had them open at lunch, and all the kids signed. Like, the attachment is very real. If I'm out, if they can't come, like, as soon as I come back, well, where are the dogs? Who signed up today? Yeah, they want to know everything. So the attachment is very real. Yeah. Created baseball cards.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had this.
Yeah, and the baseball cards. And the baseball cards, you would have thought they were famous. Like, we went through hundreds. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I want them with the little paw print on them. Little
I
muddy
would have
paw
took a
on it.
baseball card of the puppies, but
Students you least expect what they would do for a baseball card or a doggy card.
So a statement and a question. So a statement first, I would love to live a life that my presence is a reward for good behavior. But the question is, so one, there's actually kind of two questions. One is, are we maxing the usage? So what is like the bottleneck in terms of how often the dogs are able, and is it just like, there's no need, so they're not here? Is it funding? Is it the amount of dogs? Is it the opportunity? Is it like a board meeting?
These wonderful ladies are volunteering their time. Got it. So it's when they're able to come. Got it. And so the kids, everyone is so appreciative, and I mean, they give their all.
There's a shortage of therapy dog teams. We've seen many emails come out requesting teams, and then you'll see follow-up emails saying, no response. There's just a shortage of therapy dog teams. You guys hit the jackpot somehow. I don't know how you did it, but you're super.
I raved about our school and how much I loved it, and it worked. I meant every word.
so kind of to follow up what Mr. Jewett said, because I took a class when I went to I remember if it was the Triad, no, it was the COSBA conference. And I did one on therapy dogs, which is kind of where that request came. So following up like Mr. Jewett said, and knowing that there's a shortage, what can we do to make sure that our students are still getting this need met?
So I think we've been fortunate given the sort of trajectory of our SEL programming in the district. Staff members like Ms. Harp, like Ms. Breen, and like Ms. Jane Farragon-Wilson. So we will continue to have that resource available for our students and those experiences until we can no longer do that. But we will maximize, that opportunity for our students.
Okay. So it'd be nice to make this a regular update to hear about the therapy dog, especially knowing that there's a shortage. Because if we get to a point where we can't offer this to our students and staff, I know it's for both, not just students, what can we do to help support that?
Well, we can definitely do that. We can definitely continue to provide you with an update. But I think if the teams have any feedback on what we can do to support you and support therapy dogs in the schools overall.
I just preface because I know we've had the therapy dogs in the buildings for a while, but we've never had a presentation in regards. I've seen the pictures on social media, but and then, like I said, I took this session at a conference, and I'm thinking the board really should be apprised of the therapy dogs we use in the district.
Absolutely, we will.
Ashley's phenomenal. I can't say enough really good about her. She really makes me want to come to your district and do therapy work with your district. So a lot of it is the personal relationship with Ashley and everything she puts into it. So I think supporting your staff to support them.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's very nice to hear, and we really appreciate you all coming out this evening. It was really nice to see the therapy dogs.
So Ms. Negretti-McGinley, you bring up a good point that the dogs are not only for the students. If you can see those faces on the screen there, the staff absolutely love the dogs as well. So
This is great. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Any additional belly rubs? No.
no one wants to follow me tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, I think next up now we get to follow that. Good luck. Organic Life presentation number 3 of 3. Dr. Kibbins.
Absolutely. Well, good evening, board. We had some food before dinner. We had a little fun during the meeting, and now we're gonna close this up with our 3 of 3 Organic Life Food Service year presentations. For those of you that may remember the presentation from last year, typically we do this presentation in May as we look at ending the school year. We move this presentation to June, and there's some good reason why. We have an opportunity in the presentation to share a full year, including summer school. Our food service requirements are that our students who are here instructionally in the summer do receive a breakfast and a lunch, and that is provided by our food service. So it presents good food for thought, no pun intended, for how we might do some presentations next year. As we look at the camaraderie and the teams from the therapy dogs, we have an A++ team here from Organic Life. With us this evening is Eric Arlinsky, Vice President, Jose Gutierrez, Vice President, and our own very own Round Lake alumni graduate, Melissa Bungay, who is our food service director. So without any further ado, want to provide an opportunity for them to share and celebrate the good work they've done this last quarter.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction. It will be a little difficult to compete with the therapy dogs. I will do my best. Not as exciting, but I have all great things to share about food service and excited to be here, especially as Dr. Kibbins mentioned in June. It's really nice to be able to compile all the data and all the fun things we've done throughout the entire year to share with you this evening. As always, we like to start with a lot of data and numbers. I'll summarize this all in the next few slides, but here's our participation of breakfast by school each month. As you could see, every month is a little bit different based on the number of serving days. April was the highest with 21 full days. But as you could see, our participation throughout the year for breakfast. And then the next slide is our participation for lunch. Again, April being the highest month since they had 21 serving days. And then this slide here is the summary. So we compared a full year of 23-24 school year with last full school year 22-23. As you can see, we've increased breakfast and lunch. We've served over 1 million meals combined between breakfast and lunch alone this year, which is super exciting. We've increased a total over 36,000 meals combined, 7.4% in breakfast and about 1.5% in lunch. We've continued EEC snacks. We've served over 40,000 snacks this school year between AM and PM. Also comparison between this school year to last school year, we've increased over 4,000 more snacks for the students, about 10.5% increase. And our participation on the summer program, we've served over 41,000 supper meals to the students this year at McGee Middle and the high school. And once again, here's a comparison from this year to last year. Please note that last year we began the program in November, so it wasn't an entirely full school year, but regardless, we've increased and provided over 41,000 meals. Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to share was that we had an ISB administrative food service audit this year. School food service is audited by the state once every, they've been going back and forth between once every 5 years and once every 3 years. This year we were up for review. So the month of review was December, where they reviewed every single thing of school food service you could possibly think of. They came out in March between the 1st and the 6th, and he was on site. He had just did an intense review on dietary information and production records and breakfast and lunch menus and child nutrition labels and recipes and product formulation statements and professional standards and trainings for all of our staff to ensure that we're in compliance. On site, he had reviewed RLAS and Village, so he was able to monitor breakfast and lunch service to make sure that the kids are taking the correct components and following offer versus serve, and everything went as great as it possibly could. There were no findings, and it was a perfect review. Okay, so here's the fun stuff. This year we had our famous pizza challenge. We decided to do pizza challenge on Pi Day. And this year we got to incorporate the elementary students. So we've been doing this for the last 3 years. The first year we had high school students, last year were middle school students, and this year was elementary students. And the winner went to Beach Elementary. They came up with, although all the pizzas were amazing, they came up with a marinara sauce, pepperoni, mushroom, bell pepper, squash, mozzarella cheese, Parmesan cheese, basil, and buffalo sauce, and we had incorporated it into the menu. So not that we're retiring from Pizza Challenge, but next year we're going to move on to a pasta challenge for the next few years. So we will do the same concept 1 year with high school, 1 year with middle school students, and 1 year with elementary school students. They have such a great time. It's really fun to see them interact and get to go behind the scenes in the kitchen and see how it's made. And as always, we like to collect feedback during those evenings. Beforehand, we meet with the students and we find out some of their feedback, some of their favorites, some of their not so favorites. So here we're just sharing some of the feedback that we received. Some of the breakfast favorites are the typical pancakes, yogurt, bagels, blueberry muffins, chocolate pancakes, strawberry Pop-Tarts, waffles, etc. Not so favorite, oatmeal bars. Can't always please everybody, but I'm sure there are some students who do like those too. Lunch, some of the favorites are, of course, pizza, macaroni and cheese, spicy chicken sandwiches, pastas, Bosco sticks, different pizza flavors and different chicken flavors. And not so favored are the sun butter and jelly, ham and cheese sandwich, breakfast for lunch, and chili. So we always take this feedback and like to incorporate it in the menu, or maybe not as much on the menu. A few new menu items this year have been a cheese omelet, strawberry cream cheese bagels, Tex-Mex salad, lasagna roll-ups, barbecue rib sandwiches. This one was a really nice moment that our staff over at RLAS were recognized by the staff and the students. So it was really nice to see them getting that extra, good job, good work, recognition. And we, as always, we participate in the World Language Night, and this was a nice, fun event where we were able to share our culture and food with the Round Lake areas and community. And some caterings this year, but all of this is in the last few months since our last board meeting. But as you can see, we have the Staff Appreciation Day, Student of the Month, Superintendent Strategic Planning Sessions, and high school graduation. I got to taste that Panther Punch tonight, and it is very refreshing. I almost declined, and I'm glad I didn't because it was pretty good. And this one is my favorite slide. It's just nice to be able to share about summer school because usually we have our third update in May. So it's nice to see a smile on the students, even in the summer. The one on the left is, of course, an elementary student ready to start her day, and on the right are athletes fueling up for practice. We are providing breakfast and lunch on June 3rd through the 27th, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at McGee and Round Lake High School. Again, thank you for another amazing year in the books and the opportunity to serve the students and staff at Round Lake. Any questions?
Not really questions, but I really just really wanted to recognize Organic Life for no findings on your food service review. That's awesome.
Thank
Really
you.
speaks to the quality of the program that you have. And then I really just wanted to recognize you have in here about the feedback from the students using that opportunity of the pizza challenge to have that captive audience and hear from them. And then to hear how you're talking about that you really do take that feedback and how you're addressing their not so favorites.
Absolutely. We always value the students. They are our customer. So we want them to know that their voice is heard. And so if there's something they might not like, what can we do to fix it? If they don't like the pasta, why don't they like it? Is it too dry? Or it's just they don't like it in general. They're never going to like it no matter what you do. So it's just nice to hear from them and find out why they may not like something as much, or if they really like something that maybe we need to put it on the menu more often. So it's nice to get that one-on-one with the students. Thank you.
I appreciate that you take that feedback and really incorporate it into the program. So thank you.
Of course.
And thanks for the comparisons year over year. That was really helpful as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's nice to see that. It's nice to be able to see a full year. So we're happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we will go to Dr. Stefan and grading practices review and updates.
All right, thank you for having me. And I'm disappointed. Eric said there would be dogs that would stay and do tricks. So I had something because I don't have food and I have no dogs. So I will do my best. So I wanted to get in front of the board. We plan to share out some communication here this evening in regards to just doing some updates, really listening to how things are going with our grading practices. And we wanted to bring that to you tonight to kind of walk through that and provide you the information. So key areas that we'll walk through tonight start with just kind of a review of the process. What did we do with building administrators and staff to walk through and kind of review our current grading practices? And then what are the grading guiding principles and key terms that we use currently as a district and that we'll continue to do so? And then what are the specific grading practices updates? So first off, in this slide, these three pictures really kind of for me depicted exactly what went into this process for me. The one in the middle is a real high priority of just kind of what are when you think like customer reviews. So what have we been hearing from families? What have we been hearing from students, from staff about how our practices are working, what's not, was a big part of this review process. And then to the left kind of speaks to the research we got to do in the background. We have to review what the current best practices look like. And then to the right, we got to work with our people. We have to collaborate to kind of come to then what are the things we need to change and what do we want to update. And we work together to do that through this process. So to start off with, this particular presentation focuses on the secondary level. I should have noted from the beginning. But you can see on the left-hand side, the participants were middle school and high school department chairs, principals, our assistant and associate principals for curriculum instruction, the director of teaching and learning, Jess Crone, was involved, and then myself. And the different activities, I really didn't touch on every single thing. There was, when I say listening to staff, there were a lot of different types of scenarios. It could have been literally a one-on-one conversation with a building administrator, and then they were talking with me, hey, I had this teacher point this out. But there were definitely specific meetings where we focused solely on the feedback that we were hearing, and I'll walk through what those meetings looked like. Those are part of the feedback sessions that you see there. The high school went pretty deep into this process and did include their SILT team. And last year, Dan Nicholas had led a grading committee at the high school level to get feedback from staff. So Jeff Dees, coming into the position this year, really kind of took charge of that process and continued the work forward. Then at the end of the year, once we had some final recommendations, we did hold staff meetings to share the changes and updates with staff and then answer any questions that they may have had. So when I talk about like the actual process of when we held meetings as a team with those that I listed on the last slide, there really were 3 specific key feedback sessions. And the first activity that we did was from all of the listening that we as administrators had done, we had lists of what are the recommended things that we kind of heard about that were bubbling. And the activity was around wherever we were, a classroom, the bank, wherever it may have been, there were white like poster papers of the different things. So when I say different things, I mean, should we count work habits in their academic grade? That was one of the things. Should formative assessments count in the grade like summative assessments? Should we remove a decaying average? Should we rethink credit recovery? Like a bunch of different things about just how we promote learning and grade learning in the schools that we had on poster paper around the room. Then every single participant, and this was with all the department chairs and their building, like I said, principals and assistant principals for curriculum, everyone got 3 sticky notes. Number 1 was, this is my thing. It's not going well and it's got to change. Another color was, this is kind of my number 2. I don't think it's great, but it's my number 2. And then their third color was, leave this alone. Like, this is good for kids. It's good for me as a teacher. I don't want us to touch this. So then once we did that activity, Jeff worked a lot on that at the high school level, that first initial activity, and then I supported it with middle school department chairs. We collected what were the top like items. What was the number 1 we want to see change, and what were the things that people were like, no, leave this alone, or there was a lot of split decision. And then from there, session 2 was me coming back to the teams, both high school and middle school, and saying, this is where the data shows. This is where we really want to change. This is where we want to start or make an adjustment. And then I took a stab at creating some kind of guiding principles based on our current practices, still using mastery learning, still using standards-based grading, but giving some really like student, family friendly language around those practices and defining some of our key terms like those I just mentioned. That was our second session. And then they worked in teams and gave feedback through Google Docs. I consolidated all of that feedback and then came back to session 3 and said, okay, here's our final draft of our recommended changes, our grading guiding principles, our key terms. What did I miss? There were a couple of tweaks in there, and from there we were ready to go to a staff meeting. So it was a really collaborative process back and forth, listening to staff feedback and responding to what they thought was best for their classroom and for their kids. So that leads us to the grading guiding principles and key terms. And this is the guiding principles piece that I think really speaks well. It brought me, as I was kind of reflecting on and thinking about it, it connects really well to what the work we did with our strategic plan, the portrait of a graduate, our district mission. What we landed with in Round Lake area schools, the grading practices include 4 intersecting key features focused on learning. Number 1, assessing learning. That's what we've got to give the kid. We have to be able to assess where they're at as we teach them. Number 2, using feedback to further their learning. We need to tell kids what they haven't learned yet so that they have the information to be able to adjust where they're at. Number 3, we need to motivate our students to improve and to further their learning. I will say that this one was an area definitely we had a lot of conversation around that because this is hard. Motivating teenagers to like learn about something they have no interest in is not an easy ask. So that was one where we spent a lot of time around that because that leads to talking about engaging instruction. What does that look like? But it's super important. We have to, I loved teaching Spanish, so I did everything I could to get the kids to have an interest in that content area too. And number 4, then communicating the expectations, being clear about what am I expecting you to learn and what do you need to do to be able to further that learning. So when you think about the district mission of inspire and empower students to construct a thriving future, you really can't construct a thriving future if you're not being assessed on where you're at, you're not being given any feedback, no one's motivating you to do anything, and they haven't told you what you need to do. Like, you need to have those things to be able to pursue whatever interests you may have in the future. So those were the guiding principles that we landed on as a team. And then these are the key terms. Again, no new terms here from things we have discussed before. One little clarification is we do want to clarify the difference between a classroom-based formative assessment and a common formative assessment. Classroom is the real quick things a teacher might do. Like one example would be fist of 5. If you're at a fist, you don't understand anything I just taught you. If you're at a 5, you could teach your partner. Those are like quick classroom things to kind of check where our kids at. And teachers can obviously do that any point they want with their teaching, but it's not common in every single classroom when they're doing that. But a common formative would be, we've all taught the same lesson. We're going to ask these same questions or do this same activity and talk in our PLC about how are the kids at after that lesson. That would be a common formative, and that's important when I talk about the grading weighting scale change, because the common formatives will be something that the teachers will have to use in the kids' grades. So next thing up then is the grading practices updates. And here we wanted to just start with what are kind of some key parameters around what goes into our grades. First off, attendance and behavior are not a part of our academic grade. We definitely have work habits that report out on those types of things. We have attendance where you can see how students are doing. We have other ways of monitoring these, but they do not go into the academic grade. Examples of like historical traditional grading where that would happen would be like you take off points because they handed something in late. Like that's a behavior. That's not something that goes into how much did they learn. Extra credit is not something we give in the sense of traditional extra credit, but kids have a retest within every single unit of instruction, so they always have the opportunity to go back and demonstrate more learning. And then homework, this was a big piece in regards to the work that we've done around equity. We really have to be thoughtful about what we're giving as homework assignments. We have to make sure the kids would have access to what they need at home to complete the activity. We don't want to send them out with like, you have to go buy some fancy charcoal pencils and a bunch of poster board. We want to be thoughtful of their time as well, because we know that our kids may not have as much time after school. If they have to work after school, if they have to care for siblings, we don't want to be giving homework in every class that takes an hour per class. So just something we wanted to note there in homework. It's important to note on the next couple of slides, you'll see in the bottom right hand corner, the MSHS stands for middle school, high school. I just wanted to call out where these pieces, where they take place. So these are definitely grading parameters that speak to both levels within the secondary schools. And then the first official change in our grading practice is we are going to be removing the decaying average. I'll explain that briefly. The decaying average is a recommended practice for sure, especially when you're reading literature about equity and grading practices. And the idea behind it is that the last assessment you take means the most, it counts the most. So we have some fancy calculation behind our grades that says the most recent grade I put in is going to weigh a little heavier, okay? Because that's given the kids the most amount of time to learn it. So in practice and philosophically, totally makes sense. But what we have found in the feedback we've gotten from students, staff, families, is there's two problems. Number one, we're grading teenagers and they have bad days. I mean, we all have bad days, but with teenagers, we know that that can happen. So for like your most recent one to weigh more, if you had a couple assessments before that where you were doing okay, and then suddenly you have a bad day and that one counts more, we were running into that problem, which is more of like the real world, right? Sometimes philosophy makes sense, but in real world, it gets tricky. But then the bigger piece is people couldn't figure out, you couldn't help kids figure out their grade because of that formula in the background. Now everything will move to a straight average. So we will put in at the indicator level a grade. It will average for that standard, and then the standards will average for an overall grade. So everything becomes a straight average. The math behind it is much easier for us to figure out. So that is definitely a recommendation. That was number one from the staff, that we had to get rid of that. The very close behind that number one was counting common formative assessments in the grade. They did an outstanding job as department chairs of saying formatives are about learning. And if we're saying our guiding principle is that we want to assess learning, then we should be saying that formatives are a part of the grade calculation. Now, because formative is like the first time the teacher's checking if I have understanding, we don't want that to weigh nearly as much as it would at the end of a unit. So that's why you see the difference in the 10% and the 90%. But this was something where there definitely was feedback from staff that we wanted to put a weight on that formative assessment piece because it was a measure of our students' learning. So those are the first two changes. The rest of the changes only apply to the high school level, and we are bringing forward a revised grading scale. The key pieces to point out here is this does definitely connect to talk that we definitely have all been discussing at the board level and with Dr. Mendoza about increasing rigor. So this gives more students an opportunity to achieve an A a little bit, but it really kind of shifts everything up a little. So if you see the grading scale from the current one, what the F is compared to next year, there's a little bit of a higher expectation to pass a course and receive high school credit. But it does give a little bit more access in the area of the A as well, because we did have staff say that it was becoming, just with that average of like 3, we want to get between the 3 and the 4, we were seeing definitely less kids having access to the A. So we're moving to this grading scale at the high school level. The middle schools don't receive letter grades, so that's why this wouldn't impact middle school. Summative assessments and retakes. On this particular slide, it speaks to working on, I mentioned that we don't want to take off points if kids hand things in late, but we do want to do better, encouraging kids to meet timelines, right? Meet deadlines. And understand that, yes, okay, in the real world, your boss might say, okay, this time you can have that slideshow done next week, but if it keeps happening, there's a consequence, right? Yeah, if I had to go to Dr. Mendoza every time I was supposed to, I need it for next meeting, that wouldn't go over well, right? So we want to encourage kids that deadlines do matter, but we also want to recognize they're teenagers and their brains are still developing, and we have to if we want to motivate them to learn, we have to keep pushing them as well. So it's a tricky balance, right? So you'll see there's kind of 3 bullets here. For any students, if they're ever missing summative work, like I was absent on that day or I didn't get it in on time, whatever, the teacher is going to put it in the grade book as a 0 because there is no evidence of learning, right? But they're also able in Infinite Campus to put an M next to that so that a parent will know M means they can still do this. It's just missing right now. So that is a really important feature because I know when I was teaching, I was trying to be the nice teacher, wasn't putting in any zeros when they were absent, and then you'd add the zeros and oh my God, suddenly their grade tanked. So I did just start putting zeros in right up front. So I wanted them to know, but you really got to be paying attention to that piece. They do have 10 instructional days then to get that work in if they are absent or haven't handed it in. So it gives them some time because we want to encourage them to provide that evidence of learning, but it does hold them to a definite time frame of getting the work in. The next piece on there is the students are required to complete common formative assessments and then any kind of corrective activity or assignment a teacher may give them based on their feedback. If you didn't get it yet, I need you to do this activity and then I'll review it with you to make sure you're ready for the retest. There's no point in giving a kid a retest if they never do anything to prepare for that retest. The interesting part about that bullet is in talking to teachers around the school and having been a teacher in the school that did implement mastery learning, I don't know if I was not following rules, but like I did that. I would never have handed a kid a retest if they hadn't done the corrective for me. But we were finding that staff were like, well, I thought I had to give everyone a retest. But they don't, they shouldn't. If you have never given a kid feedback on how what's the point? There's no point. So that's something we wanted to get in writing that like, no, they need to do those corrective things and do their formatives so that you could actually tell them what they still need to study for that upcoming retest. And then the last bullet is for students that are absent on the day of the common formative, we are asking them and the department chairs are going to put together a template that all staff could just email a parent, hey, your child missed this common formative, it will count in their grade, they have 10 days to make it up. So there's that parent piece of letting parents know that there was something that will count in their grade, they missed it today, we need them to get it completed. So then our last change at the high school level is a change from the mastery exam structure. This is one where I was actually just meeting with Jeff Dees today and talking about like how much we're going to have to communicate this to families. Because currently our master exam structure does not require student attendance. But feedback again from students and staff has just been that like no matter what our kids choose to do to construct a thriving future, they might need to go take a certification exam. They might not go to post-secondary school, but they have to take that certification exam and experience a high stakes test. They might go on to college and have to live through final exams that could look however that professor wanted them to look, right? So we want to require that kind of a structure for our kids. So we will be required that they attend. It will be a part of their grade. They will be, what else do I have up here? They'll be required as a part of the course curriculum, same thing. But then the big key piece here is the second semester. We will have an exemption process for our seniors. That is very, very typical across schools, that when you're a senior, we get out a week early. You don't have to come in for final exams if you meet this exemption criteria. Of course, if they're not passing, they're coming, but we will work that out and communicate that before the end of, before we get closer to second semester. But this is, all of these are going to require a lot of communication. The high school has already worked with Sarah LeBlanc in communications to draft out some letters to families, but it's going to have to be rolled several times throughout the semester. There will be makeup days, so it always happens. I mean, the kids can get sick, right? So there will be an opportunity still for a student to make up a final exam, but this one is definitely going to be our heavy hitter on communication. I should point out too that for this and that 10 days, we know that kids have life circumstances. If there is a medical reason or a family reason that they needed some kind of an extension, of course, we'd work with administration, department chairs to do that for kids. But again, we really wanted to kind of up that rigor and bring forward some things that would give our kids exposure to like real world job experience. So that, I believe, is it?
Dr. Steffen, just a couple comments, just to contextualize this for the board. I want to thank Dr. Steffen. This was something I personally didn't think we were going to get to until next year, given everything else we had. Probably, Dr. King, when did I attend your McGee staff meeting? So I attended 3 of the secondary staff meetings just to connect with secondary staff, because a lot of our focus had been elementary based, and really the purpose was just to let the staff know we hadn't forgotten about them. But partner schools, elementary curriculum adoptions, and the thing that kept coming up was the grading system. So I brought that to Dr. Steffen. I think the process she used was very, very inclusive. I think our teachers felt really, really good about listening to them. And if you think about our culture climate survey, teachers not feeling like they have a voice, they definitely did here. The other thing that I actually really personally appreciated, and I probably would have shared it whether she asked me or not, is Dr. Steffen asked me what were my non-negotiables. I really only had a couple. One is we would not go back to a traditional grading system, and I'll explain why in a second. And then 2, this idea of percentage of formative versus summative, 90-10. We were at 100-0. And I did my own research, and I will tell you, like I always do, I called 15 other school districts. They were local, not going to call out the individual ones. And also, like districts, LUDA districts, districts in the area. I couldn't find one district, not one, that still has a traditional grading system. I would also say, this is important just for you to know that we're not. What I would say is when I was first hired, we were probably out there doing this when other people weren't. Now it's flipped. If you have a traditional grading system, you're probably doing something that is not considered a best practice. I'm not saying people love it. I'm just saying that's the reality of it. And so I also pulled meta studies from Hanover Research because they have access to nationwide. And really this idea of the grade should be to indicate levels of learning, not an accumulation of points. Like when I was in school, if you could have kids not do well on tests, do all their homework, and they get a C+ or a B-. Well, how much did they really actually learn? I would also say this idea of allowing kids in a structured way to be reassessed on their learning is aligned with all of the literature on best practice now. So I just want to reaffirm to the board that Dr. Steffen did a tremendous job of really listening, incorporating feedback. The one thing I would tell you, of all the districts I called, there were 15 of them. This percentage breakdown, 100, 0, 90, 10, I would say about 80% of them were anywhere between 0 and 20% homework counted. Like, there was one, this one was a little bit unique, where the formative, the practice, the homework, the labs, that was 60% of the grade. The end of unit tests were 40% of the grade. So how did you do at the end of the unit? But that teacher had full discretion to override the 60. So let's say you had a student that didn't do any of their homework, but then at the end of the semester aced every test. That teacher could do an override. For us, that just would be such a massive change, and I don't think our teachers would accept that as kind of a best practice. So I just wanted to give you the background and really compliment Dr. Steffen on really running a process. Mr. Peterson, the high school, the middle schools, really listening. And I think we ended somewhere good. And like everything else, we're going to monitor it and make adjustments as we go. So I think you did a tremendous job.
I think this is just the beginning of looking at it. We'll have more to come, but good start.
I don't have a question so much as a comment. Definitely lots of communication and multiple aspects of communication, because these kids are used to homework not counting and not having to take the mastery exams. As a parent who beats her head against the wall daily, trying to explain that a formative is an assessment of what you know, what you need to learn, what you need to work on, and that when you don't do well on the summative, it's because you didn't do any of the formatives. I appreciate this. The kids may not appreciate this, but I know I can't be the only parent who is tired of hearing they don't count and trying to explain this. It's challenging.
I hear you.
So-
I have a high schooler, and they're always finding ways to manipulate the system. So I hear you, but I agree. I'm hopeful that this will help send the message.
I'm curious because you got feedback from administrators and teachers and students. So this seems like it's upping the ante a bit, making it a little more rigorous.
That
which
is
I
the
really
goal,
appreciate.
100%.
Right. In the rigor, where did the students identify that more rigor is needed in these areas?
Yeah, I would have to say me learning about the students was everything the department chairs were saying to me, that they were coming to me and saying, but the kids are saying they don't feel prepared without taking a final exam. Like kids that were coming back from college is what they were getting the feedback from. I did not ask kids like right now, if we did this, how would you feel? We'll see how that goes coming soon. Yeah, but we were really looking at that like career readiness and what are kids telling us about their experience in school. So we didn't get into the like, look what's coming, how do you feel? But
What things are you going to use to gauge change or needing to make tweaks later?
yeah, I think a big piece is going to be having the conversations with department chairs. We never scheduled enough time. There's Brian. We were always like, we got another meeting, because they were just on it and very engaged and like pushing each other. A really big thing is going to be talking about engaging teaching. That number 3, motivating students to learn more, is where you live, as I would argue any teacher, but for sure as a teacher of teenagers. So paying attention to feedback on engaging instruction. I know that this year at the high school, Jeff Dees did a lot of like, I can't remember what he called them, something like classroom walks, where he told the DCs they couldn't look at teachers. You only look at the kids. Like, we're going to sit at the desk with the kids, we're going to talk to the kids, and we're going to see if they understand what they're doing. Like, then you know it's engaging if the kid can be like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and here's why. But a lot of times we get focused on like, is the teacher being clear? Is the teacher asking all the students? Like, and he wanted them to really be engaging more in students. So we've talked about continuing that practice. Department chairs reported out that was like super helpful. It really changed their perspective in going in and doing walkthroughs, and even going across departments and looking at like, okay, we've been in a couple math classrooms as a math DC. Let's walk into an English classroom and talk about whether that was engaging or not. The content doesn't matter. So that's a piece for me and I know that Brian has talked a lot about engaging instruction and pushing our teachers to be focusing on that. Other things I think we'll look at is just the obvious of like, where are their grades falling, right? We're going to have to stay up on top of failure rates left, right, and center, but not just the failures. What are we seeing for the distribution of grades and how kids are performing?
So I have a couple questions. Under the summative assessment for that 10 days, is it a hard stop? Like, okay, if they don't even turn in that 10 days, it's still a 0?
Yes, that is the plan moving forward. Now, again, if a kid came forward, I would hope for sure they would come forward and be like, oh my God, I know that tomorrow is day 10. We would let the teachers work with kids, absolutely. But that is the message we're going to send, is that like the parameters are that you have 10 days to get whatever you need, work with the teacher to do so. And the piece that I pushed a lot on the department chairs is that they had, like, this was just as much a responsibility for them as an educator as it is for the kids. Like, it can't just be like, oh, you were absent. I never go up to you. Oh, you were absent. Here's what you missed. Like, and I just expect the kid, like, that's not how teenagers work. So there definitely has to be kind of a two-way street. If the teacher communicates to a parent, your child was absent, communicates with the kid, but then we do have to push the kids to have their responsibility piece too.
So how is the communication going out to families and students? Because this is a big change. It's a great change, but it is a big change.
For sure. So far, we have started with just drafting some letters based on the information in here with some key summary points. But in talking with high school administration, I know they want to look at, like, there'll be certain times where we have to hit the mastery exam piece, and like the communication should only be about that. Because I don't want to send like a summary of this whole presentation, because that they'll gloss over that. Like Heather would be her and Sarah would be the experts on like, how long do you want the communication to be? So we'll have to make sure that every piece of these changes is communicated multiple times and in a way that makes sense. So I would lean on Sarah LeBlanc. I know they've started drafting letters and they're ready to go out this summer, but that's kind of where we're at. We wanted to talk to all of you first before we dive in detail. So, Heather, you might know more, Heather. I'm not.
And we'll incorporate in-person opportunities to learn about the changes, videos, so it won't just be written. There will be a variety of ways that we will communicate that.
Yeah, I think that's good, because this is a big change and a lot to digest. Yeah, for students and families. So yeah, I think just having a memo is probably not going to do it.
The other thing I just wanted to, and this is maybe softens it a little bit, but when we had 100-point grading scales and a kid got a 0, it destroyed the grade. Well, we have a 4-point system now, so a 0 isn't great, but it won't have the impact. It will have an impact enough to send a message, but it won't be like it was before, where, I mean, just do the math problem. If you can get 4 90s and on the 5th one you get a 0, it completely destroys the grade. And I don't think that's fair either, especially if it's the student didn't turn it in, and the grade is supposed to represent level of learning. What does the 0 actually represent? So that's fair. I mean, what I shared is accurate. Okay.
So the other question I asked, when was the last time we looked and reviewed the grading scale for the middle school, high school?
Honestly, do not know exactly. I know that I don't know.
So here's what I would say to that. I just remember this. So we had mastery learning and we had a standards-based system when I came in, but we actually took a hard look at it to change when we adopted Infinite Campus. So Dan, how long have we had Infinite Campus? 6 years, 7? 2018. So I would say that was the last time we made a significant change to the
Because that's what I remember as well. But I just want to make sure I didn't miss something somewhere.
You're 100% right.
So it kind of goes back to Mr. Jewett's question. When do we know is the right time to look at this? I mean, do we wait another 5 years or something, or how does how does this keep a life cycle so that we're looking at this, so that we're keeping up with best practices and increasing rigor?
Yeah, to me, it's really keeping a pulse on the kids and the staff. So definitely doing a lot of work with our department chairs on how things are going, monitoring student grades, also even looking at standardized tests, like how are our students performing. So I think constantly looking at that. There are other pieces that staff wanted us to address. So I had mentioned work habits being a part of the grade. And I actually pushed back on the team. That wasn't their number one or their number two, but it was definitely split 50-50. But we, based on the post-workforce readiness, post-secondary workforce readiness act, there we go, are required to have an updated framework. They call it the PACE framework. Don't know what that acronym stands for, but it is all workforce readiness, key indicators we have to assess on. So I said to the department chairs, why would we count our current work habits in when we're going to have to revise them based on state mandates? So there's certain things that will come along the way that will require us. But as far as if 10% is the right number for formatives, I think that's just keeping a pulse on how it's going in departments and looking at grades to make sure. I mean, again, we're working with teenagers, so navigating if 10 or 15 or 20% is right, it's just going to be a lot of listening. I don't think we would make any kind of a change after year one. I think you've got to live in it for a good couple of years. But I think we have to constantly be looking at these practices.
And I would say the reality of this is I would not be surprised first semester if we have a lower pass rate because our kids are going to test it. So I think I've talked to Lisa about it. I will definitely talk to the middle school. This has to be monitored and it has to be communicated with the kids over and over and over and over. And I just know because the same thing happened with suspensions, expulsions, class cuts, discipline referrals. As you tighten the screw, it's a lot easier to go loose than tighten. This is tight, we're tightening a little bit. So I think there might be a little bit of a adjustment period, I say respectfully at the beginning. But what I also feel like is our kids always respond, and they will in this case.
There is too a reported partnership with Dan's team that we're working on in Tableau, which is our data dashboard that will report out on gradings that we're specifically going to train department chairs on so that they can monitor it really closely and have an idea of where the grade distribution. So again, it's failure rate, but it's looking at all the grades. So they'll be definitely looking at that a lot in partnership with their admin.
This was very good, so thank you.
I just have one quick one on the making the mastery exams mandatory. So now that would mean if they're going in and they take a mastery exam, even if they're at a certain level, it can actually knock them backwards.
Yeah, the mastery exams. So what we did for this year with mastery exams is because this is our first year doing it, we're allowing the course teams to determine what the mastery exam, because our high school curriculum is teacher driven. So there could be say Math 1 decides we want to have a cumulative assessment. So it would be all of the math content. They would have to write that assessment together during the school year. It would have to go through teaching and learning and Jeff Dees in their department chair, okay, yep, this assessment looks good. But they also could do a cumulative project. They could just make it their last assessment in the unit of instruction. We're giving the teachers a little bit of flexibility on this year, just because it's a new change and we wanted to give them a chance to kind of see what could work for their departments. But yes, it will count in their grade, whatever it looks like on that assessment, it will have an impact on their grade, could be good, could bring them down.
Yeah, definitely communication's going to be of the utmost with that, because if you've got somebody who's sitting at an A going into the final and now you're telling them they've got to do X, Y, Z to maintain it or else they're going to go to a B, C, whatever, that's definitely going to be a culture shock.
I would agree 100%.
I love it. It's accountability and you got to run the whole race. So thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key is this is where they're going to end up. So It's tricky. Like I said, we want to have that balance of like philosophical, what do we want to do, but then also practical real world application, what makes the most sense. And even working with our equity consultants, they literally said when we were talking about decaying average, like, oh, the research says, and they're like, yeah, but you live the real world. We know as an equity consultant, we're going to tell you, you should do decaying average. It's best for XYZ. But you live the school and you see what happens to your students and what they need. So we understand as an equity consultant that you might have to tweak some practices to meet what the kids have to do. It's like always that give and take of, research philosophy versus application real
Well,
world.
and one of the things we talked about is we want our kids to demonstrate agency and self-advocacy, but they can't explain to their parents how their grade works. I oversimplify things, but I basically told Dr. Steffen, if a student or staff member can't explain a grade in 30 seconds on how it gets calculated, it's too complicated. I mean, that's the metaphor that I have, and this will do that. It's an average now. You take the numbers based on what's been entered, you do an average. So a student will be able to know if I get this on my next test, this is what happens to my grade. We couldn't do that with the decaying average. And I think that's important to our kids, right or wrong, and our parents should know it also.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and the decaying average definitely needed to go. My biggest fear on that is and yes, you do have to finish the race, absolutely. But if you've got somebody who has shown you all year up until the very last test, and now you're saying your A that you've given me all year, 100, you have to nail this or else it's going back down to a B. The amount of pressure that's being put on that could actually negatively impact them.
Oh, I don't disagree. There's definitely more stress, right? Going into final exams, there's going to be more stress on kids. I will say that we did land on though, that this final assessment is a part of the overall grade. So we're not saying the final exam alone is 20% by itself of your grade. Now, it's like another test. Now, it's important to note, which I just, again, talking to Jeff today, that the course teams have to be reflecting on that and we have to guide them in that conversation. Because if they choose to do a cumulative exam, that's going to be tougher for a kid rather than it just being my last unit, right? So Jeff and I talked a lot today about like how do we prepare the kids and the teachers for this. But for sure, I promise tons of parent communication will go out in a variety of forms.
Any additional questions? Great presentation. Thank you. Excellent. All right, next up is disposal materials. Any questions in regards to the memo on disposal materials? Disposal of materials, aka you. All right, next up then will be our 2024-2025 strategic plan, strategies, and measures recap. Any questions for the administrative team on the presentation as presented there? As always, colors are beautiful.
I'll go through the whole presentation if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're co-presenting today with a bunch of us. So anybody who's not at a table, if you can go up to find a microphone. At one point in the presentation, we're going to be going back and forth between presenters. So as you recall, we went through a brand new strategic plan development process this year, and the board adopted the overall strategic plan in April, the end of April. So the next steps to that process was to develop strategies related to each of the goals. So again, you all know what we did. Over the winter, we worked with approximately 39 individuals that included a board, administration, union representation, teachers, staff, parents, community members, and our students. We had 5 sessions and a couple separate smaller subcommittee meetings to determine our final plan. We kept our existing mission to inspire and empower students to construct a thriving future. And those are our core values and beliefs that we carried over from the prior plan. Okay, here we have a video that is now on our new website. which we have just went live, I think, on Friday. So we have kind of a general structure of the strategic plan, and we will be building onto this page as we progress through the summer and into the fall.
Hello, District 116 family. I am thrilled to be here today to introduce our new strategic plan, a roadmap that will guide us toward excellence in the years to come. Our strategic plan is built upon a portrait of a graduate, a depiction of what we want every student at District 116 to possess. All students will develop skills that will create opportunities for them to inspire, empower, engage, and thrive. We created this plan in partnership with members of our school board, union leadership, staff, students, parents, and community members. Over the course of several months, we all worked together to develop the best path to guide our district.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute as a parent in this process. The careful planning and insightful data provided to the team were pivotal in creating a practical and achievable plan.
It was both impressive and heartwarming to see so many stakeholders work in their separate groups, sharing out and discovering that we all had so many of the same shared values and commitments to student success and achievement.
The strategic plan goals for years to come will align directly to the key components of success as outlined in our portrait of a graduate. And today, we present this plan to you in partnership with our staff and community. When a student inspires, they are inquisitive. They are visionary. When one is empowered, they are resilient. They are emotionally intelligent. Students must engage. When they engage, they are able to embrace diversity. They become effective communicators. And finally, a thriving student is independent. They are able to think critically. I am incredibly proud of what we have accomplished together, and I am excited about the journey ahead. Together, we will create opportunities for all students around the area schools to reach high levels of success. Thank you for your dedication, passion, and commitment to the success of every student in our school district.
So just wanted to thank our communications team, Sarah LeBlanc, our communications coordinator, and Gracie Durham is our newer digital media specialist. So they did all of that work for us. Oh. Okay, so as a reminder, we've all seen this being part of the strategic plan committee, but this is the portrait of a graduate that was developed by the entire team, and the end result was created by one of our own, Carolyn Corcoran. So this is the larger visual that we have for it, and then this is the smaller scale one that we developed. Okay, so now, like I mentioned earlier, this was the next steps in the strategic plan. So we're going to go through each of our categories and review both the strategies that have been developed for the 24-25 school year and speak to the measures that we will be utilizing to gauge success.
All right, so our first goal here in teaching and learning that is under Inspire says complete and implement the current K through 5 curriculum adoption process for new curricula in math, English language arts, Spanish language arts, and social emotional learning across all grade levels. So ways that really areas of focus for this next school year will be focusing on a successful implementation, which we defined as making sure that we have resource delivery, which is our world right now, making sure everything ends up in the right classroom so teachers have their resources is number one for us currently, inventorying all of the resources, and then also professional development they may be needed, And then we'll also work to develop a staff support model that can respond to staff needs with the new curriculum that they'll be implementing, so we can respond quickly to where they need support. Measures in this area will focus mostly, you can see, on standardized assessments, looking at IAR, iReady, ACT, and access testing. Scores, looking whether it's proficiency or growth. And then there's something that we refer to in the MTSS world as tier movement, which means tier 1 would be our students that are performing at above the 25th percentile on standardized assessments. For us, historically, it was MAP. Moving forward, it will be iReady. But we want to see if kids are moving. If they're at tier 3, needing the most possible support, do they move back down to tier 2? If they're at tier 2 and needed some support, are they able to move back into tier 1 with the general population? And that's really important. We can do that through branching minds. So we've been looking at that report all year. And then something that I will be building with the team is a fidelity check process. This will be separate from our traditional walkthroughs. Our walkthroughs we really want to use as support, but the fidelity check piece will be something I'll be building where we can check on how we're doing with implementation. The second goal is to create a district-wide curriculum development model and then adoption cycle. So the key tasks in there, there's a lot of language in there. It's really just making sure that we're considering everything you should consider in regards to best practice when you're implementing new curriculum and monitoring that implementation, as well as paying attention to what that instruction looks like. So the tasks for next year will include developing a long-term cycle for every content area. This is something we'll look at K through 12. And then formalizing that process of what goes into a curriculum adoption, no matter what content area is doing. And then again, we're still going to be looking at those same standardized measures to determine if we're being successful in teaching and learning.
Okay, so our next goal is to create a new 3-year professional development plan designed to support strategies that include, but are not limited to, increasing student achievement, increasing rigor and high quality instruction, raising expectations, cultural competency, and social emotional health for students and staff. So the tasks here, as you know, we're focusing a lot on the PLC reset for secondary and obviously supporting the new curricula at the elementary level. But more than that, what we're looking to see is an increase in student outcomes. So we're looking particularly at that elementary level to see student learning improve as a direct result of the professional learning of our staff. That's the whole point of professional learning in the first place, is to improve student learning outcomes, behavioral outcomes, or overall social and emotional health. Well-being. So that is the long-term goal of all of our PD. The measures that we're doing, including fidelity checks that Dr. Steffen mentioned, also including just overall walkthrough data, measuring implementation of the guaranteed and viable curriculum, IAR and district assessments, measuring the impact that that has on student learning, and then the measuring of high-quality PLCs. So what we were talking about earlier with Solution Tree coming and observing our PLCs, discussing with our staff, making sure that we're getting what we want out of the PLC reset.
The next teaching and learning goal states, invest in diversity, including but not limited to curriculum, course access, student life, student voice, second language challenges, and homeschool partnerships. And the area that we'll start for this particular goal next year is really going to be looking at collecting some baseline data and diving into the 5 essentials on the student level questions. There are quite a bit of questions in there that speak to the rigor of instruction and their relationship and connection to the school and to teachers. So we want to dive in first and look at that measurement and determine where from there we want to make some recommendations for improvements. Yep, one more. The fifth goal in teaching and learning is to review current programs that provide college and career and pathways, post-secondary success, develop a plan to enhance and enrich those real-life opportunities with a targeted focus on providing experiences at earlier ages, seeking and respecting student voice, establishing stronger connections with college, increasing work and internship opportunities, and reaching out to Round Lake alumni and creating a means to monitor success after high school. So this particular goal is something that Jess Crone on my team will be living and breathing. Already does, but for sure this will help move her work forward. So the 3 areas of focus for next year is going to be to maintain the 2 college and career pathway endorsements that we already have. I made sure I wrote wrote down. One of them is connected to our medical coursework. So that is in the Health and Sciences and Technology pathway, specific to our kids that attend Tech Campus for medical assisting and CNA. But we also have a variety of dual credit science courses that will connect to that pathway as well. We want to maintain that. And we also were approved for the financial and business services pathway for any of our students that are in the culinary program at Tech. So we're very excited about those two pathways already being approved. And then we want to bring in another pathway next year as well. We'll continue to work with CLC to increase the number of internal dual credits that we offer. And then the final piece we will be able to do, due to our partnership with School Links, is pushing out a senior exit survey and making sure that we are continue to be connected to our seniors by collecting some address information, contact information, so we can really do what we've talked about. And I've heard a lot at the board level of really being more connected to our alumni. So that is going to be one of our measures too, is just looking at how much contact info we're able to collect from our exiting seniors.
Our next section of the plan is meeting the unique needs of learners.
Under the first goal for meeting the unique needs of learners under Inspire is to complete an audit of special education services and implement the recommendations provided. So all of the initial work for this audit was completed prior to the end of the school year, and we're currently waiting to see those recommendations from CEC. And really what we'd like to do is identify the percentage of audit recommendations adopted and incorporated into special education programming. And this will be measured by reviewing IAR, iReady, and SAT growth and proficiency.
This second goal here states continue to review current multi-tiered system of supports or MTSS procedures, intervention strategies and outcomes, make recommendations to align the programs with research-based best practice, and improve the effectiveness of MTSS. So our areas of focus for next school year, the first one aligns directly to our new curricula implementation. Tier 1 instruction is the instruction that all students must receive. So that will be directly what comes out of the new curriculum. So we want to make sure that we are staying on top of instructional practices and supporting our teachers with that implementation. The second piece is with the new curriculum adoption. The only supplemental resource that we purchased was with the language arts. We purchased a program called Express through Benchmark that supports language learners, but there is a multitude of a variety of resources that they provide for intervention. But we wanted to live at Tier 1 and really talk about really good Tier 1 instruction next year. But then we will, as a team in teaching and learning, dive into what the vendor provides for additional intervention resources that we will decide what we want to work on, and then also look at progress monitoring tools so we can stay on top of the data collection and intervention. And then the final piece is to create data cycles to monitor progress in each of the tiers. So regularly looking at how our students are performing in assessment. Our measures there are definitely going to be the standardized test measurements that we've touched on in many of the other goals.
So under Engage, goal 3 is to continue to review curriculum and programming as it relates to multilingual student needs. So Ms. Knapp has done a great job this year consulting with Adelante Educational Group to really take a deep dive into what is needed to enhance and really expand our dual language programming. As Dr. Steffen indicated, we will also be implementing the new Spanish language arts curriculum and all of the pieces and timelines that are related to that, as well as expanding our dual language programming into 6th grade for FY 25-26. The measurement for this will be the English language progress to proficiency. And really what this takes a look at is from one year to the next, it takes a look at students' progress on the access test. It looks at the gains compared to the expected gains that students would make as an outcome to measure English language progress. So under Thrive, number 4 is to implement a proactive behavior management strategy. So this past school year, Mr. Peterson and I provided 7 sessions to the high school on restorative practices. And then last Thursday, we presented to the county on restorative practices and really want to move forward with that momentum to improve student behavior, reduce major referrals, and integrate restorative practices into everything we do. So we really want to teach students skills rather than traditional discipline where we just exclude them from the educational environment for a while. So measures for this will be behavior, incident, and referral data, and survey data related to 5 essentials and the climate survey. So under social emotional development, Inspire, we want to review existing social emotional growth curriculum supports and resources. So this school year, we worked closely with Ms. Jane Farragon Wilson to start to implement the second step curriculum that the board approved. We really want to gather insight from our staff into gaps in addressing social emotional needs and then seeing what we can do to implement those recommendations and then continue with second step. Those measures will include survey data related to 5 essentials and climate survey, as well as behavior data, academic performance, and especially attendance.
So our second goal under social development, specifically Empower, would be continue to offer a wide variety of sports and extracurricular activities for students at all levels, while improving and enhancing through the increasing student voice. So the key in this one is removing barriers, increasing student voice. So the 3 things specifically that we're going to be looking at are, the first thing is having each school establish a student-led committee and or council so the students actually have their voice heard in all of our schools. The second thing that would go hand in hand with that would be, by doing that, we would ensure that all students actually have equal access to different school activities as well as sports. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to expand on those sports to make sure that we're ensuring that the things that the committee actually refer to, that there are more opportunities for students of different ethnic backgrounds and or different cultural. Our measurements for this are going to be, is there more student engagement? Have we removed barriers, or are there still existing barriers stopping us from offering things for all students? And then specifically, do we have an increase in student-led opportunities?
Next up for Engage is the third goal, continue to promote and enhance the positive relationships and culture of support that exists among staff, students, parents, and district and the community. You'll see some crossover in some of these goals and the work that we have identified for each. But as you see here, for A, continue to foster an environment of mutual respect, really focusing on really the benefit that we have within our district, having such diverse population, both inside of our Round Lake community and the overall community, Round Lake School District community, that is. We will be continuing to develop programs that engage students, staff, parents in the educational process. We talk about that every year, I think. How can we continue to engage everyone involved in the educational process? And then building upon our partnerships with local businesses, community organizations, governmental agencies, etc. Our measures will be survey data. We have the 5 essentials, like we've mentioned already. The climate culture survey that we have just finished this past May, so we'll have a nice comparison between last year and this year. Our staff retention rates, stakeholder engagement reports, and partnership reports.
Our fourth goal from the HR lens on this would be to make sure that we develop a specific plan that provides resources and supports for our staff members to maintain a positive foundation of social emotional well-being, specifically thriving. So the 3 things that we focus on here are ensuring that all staff members have easy access to the different resources provided to them, such as employee assistance programs, mental health hotlines. The second component of this would be to not only make sure they have access to these resources, but to actually provide them and coach and support them by offering these things, including other services that they may not be aware of. And then the third component of this would be to establish a wellness program to meet some of their basic needs, such as healthy eating habits, work-life balance, some of those types of things. And these are easy things for us to measure because we have access to the data, such as the employee assistance program. We can reach out and find out what is the baseline compared to how much access, how many staff are actually accessing these. So these things are going to be very important moving forward.
So the first goal under parent, community, and school partnerships Inspire is to secure feedback from all stakeholders to fully explore the various reasons for rising rates of absenteeism, research best practices in the field, and make recommendations for improvement. Concerns related to absenteeism are not specific to Round Lake area schools, but our response will be. So we will facilitate parent groups to gain insight to the root cause of absenteeism, analyze student attendance patterns and determine reasons for absences, because there is sort of an ebb and flow to the school year, and then develop an action plan. So we will measure this goal by students and attendance rates and chronic absenteeism rates.
Next up is our Empower goal. Continue to utilize a wide variety of effective communication vehicles, both internal and external. We have talked this year about the different types of communication methods that we have and the need to really identify, develop communication expectations for each of them. So that's the work that we're doing over the summer here in preparation for the start of the school year. We're looking at utilizing a variety of communication mediums. So we've done a lot of electronic communication. Like we just keep adding on to that, but I think we have some plans in place to go back to like old school mail, like actual printed communications, both internally for our families, but also for our larger community that may not have children in our school district. And the last piece here is branding the mission. This is a really important part of our work this year, especially with the launch of our new strategic plan. Dr. Mendoza led us in kind of a hands-on activity, I guess, at the leadership team meeting, where the entire leadership team was able to get into groups and come up with different ideas that they have for how we can brand the mission. So we have a great start. We'll be bringing some of these ideas back to community engagement this summer to see if you have additional feedback in that area. Measures, increased engagement efforts, reports that we have that measure that, communication metrics, distribution report of all of the marketing materials that we're putting out, etc. Next is goal 3, engage. Create and implement a plan that increases genuine engagement of parents and community members in ensuring the success of each student. So the first area is engage focus group members to gauge interest levels and assess and overcome the barriers to engagement. It kind of goes into the next one of developing a parent community volunteer program, and that outlines specific opportunities by school and program. So we want engagement. We need to actually display what opportunities are available to our families and our community. We know that parents want to participate. Sometimes they just don't know what opportunities exist. So we'll be pulling a team together that includes school members, our community engagement committee, parents, to talk about what that process could look like so that we can then put that out to all of our community to begin to build that program across the district. And then last, create a program and resource development programs for all of our parent groups. We have an outstanding program for our BPAC, and we need to continue to expand that across our entire district. Last under this category, our Thrive goal, enhance public perception of the district within the community and beyond. So the first one, create and promote connections with area realtors. We've done this in the past. We're going to bring it back. Business owners, we want to do tours of our district to provide more information, more accurate information about what's happening here in Round Lake School District 116, so that they can then take that out, share it with their clients, prospective home buyers in the area, and also connecting with our senior living facilities. So, but that also touches on the partnerships and volunteering programs potentially. We'll be scheduling regular interactions with our local municipalities, Park District, Library, Mano a Mano, Avon Township, legislators. These are things that we've done in the past, but I think with increased use of marketing materials, that will will take us a little bit further. We also have some ideas that we still want to talk to you guys about through community engagement, about getting board members into schools for regular tours as well, which we've done those usually when people are newer on the board. We've done that, but having a regular schedule of those visits, I think you'd all enjoy. And then the last piece here is develop and distribute marketing materials, printed and digital. So having an information booth maybe at our villages or any of those partnerships that I mentioned before. We'd like to have our information available across the community, so it's not just in our schools and in our district offices where they can access that information.
Okay, so our first goal for securing the future sounds very important. Is we have to continue to attract and recruit, support and retain our effective, compassionate, and talented staff members with an emphasis on increasing diversity and growing our own. So the emphasis really is the diversity and growing our own. If you look at our three items here, the first one, we've done a really good job of actually creating partnerships with different universities and institutions, but we want to focus specifically on the diversity portion. That hand in hand with what we talked about this evening, our growing our own, which is the Bloom board, will actually help with that. That'll be a nice component to grow our own. The second portion of this will be to offer comprehensive PD as we actually retain these staff members. We want to make sure that we actually find out what their passion and desires are and actually their aspirations and actually really hone in on what that is and continue to grow them so they're inspired to help continue to grow our students. And then the third thing is creating initiatives that specifically identify our own talent in the organization and groom them. We've done a really nice job on that. If you look at, even this evening, as you hear some of the promotions and presentations that are happening, we really do a good job of growing our own. We want to continue that and make sure that we actually have leadership academies and mentorship programs so we can continue what we've been doing. The measures for this are going to be retention. While our retention rate is already very good, as we attract a more diverse population, we want to make sure that we actually continue the great retention rate. Our internal advancement, we want to continue that, and then our PD offerings are going to be important to monitor and see actually how we're doing in supporting our staff.
Okay, the second one under securing the future in power is to continue to monitor and manage district resources in an effort to secure a balanced budget and fund balance reserves in compliance with state financial criteria. You've heard some of these content areas this evening with the amended budget, as well as other work we've done with our levy. One of the actions that you will see here is creating a long-term financial plan in order to fund some of those capital outlay projects that we know are not in the future now, but might be in the future to continue to maintain a very responsive program for our students and staff. And the measurement of this area would be our fund balance ratio in addition to investment reports.
Our next item, number 3, under securing the future in power, is create and communicate a long-term master's facility plan to ensure safe, high-quality spaces that meet current and future needs in the district. Couple things we're going to be doing is conduct thorough assessment of the existing facilities to identify the strengths, weaknesses, and areas of improvement. This would be beyond just individuals submitting fix-it tickets, but actually going through as a walkthrough to identify those. Secondly, we're going to explore various options and scenarios for facility improvement expansion, considering factors such as renovation, new construction, and leased property. A number of our measures that we'll be using to measure this work is a 5-year mechanical review report that is needed to be done for updating, fix-it completion reports, health life safety inspection reports.
Our fourth goal under securing the future is kind of continue to optimize the benefits of the unit school district structure with special emphasis on grade level and school transitions, both vertical and horizontal articulation amongst the staff, curriculum alignment, and positive district identity. We have a huge advantage being a unit district. We want to make sure we're really maximizing and taking advantage of that. So when you look at our 4 areas of focus, the first one, while partner schools the partner school as a shift and a change. It's going to be critical that we actually continue and create new collaborative opportunities for staff members across the grade levels and across all of the schools, specifically the partner schools, but don't lose sight of across all schools. The second one, facilitate horizontal articulation, meetings among teachers to promote consistency and coherence in practices. This is going to be very important at the elementary level, but also at secondary. This is one of the reasons we're focusing on PLCs and having Solution Tree come back in, because that's where in those meetings we actually have the most opportunity to have that collaborative conversation. So we want to make sure we tighten those up and actually maximize every minute of those conversations. The third thing is to provide professional development on effective transition strategies and interventions. We specifically put this one in here because there are so many transitions that are happening across our district right now, so many changes that are positive, that we felt the need to specifically focus on making sure that we can actually ensure that we have positive transitions and successful transitions, and they're not just assumed that these things will just happen. And the last thing on here is the foster a sense of belonging and pride through positive communication and branding. So Heather alluded to this before, but we want to make sure we're really branding everything so that everything goes back to the strategic plan, our mission and vision, and that we're all focused on no matter what we're doing on this moving forward. Our measures for this are going to be staff feedback, are going to be critical. We'll hear those through surveys such as 5 Essentials, climate surveys, and or on weekly feedback through PLCs through our walkthrough process.
The next section of the presentation, we don't have sections in the strategic plan for information technology, educational technology, or safety, but we know that these are very strong supporting areas that we should be reporting on regularly. So we'll start out with Dan.
Good evening. The Information Technology Department has identified 4 primary objectives in support of our strategic plan for next year. They are: first, implement a district-wide data analytics dashboard in order to measure and track metrics in alignment with the state school report card. Second, establish a technology steering committee made up of various district stakeholders that will focus on successfully adopting strategic and emerging technologies across the district. For example, our AI or artificial intelligence policies and practices. Third, continue advancing the work we've already done with data privacy and cybersecurity infrastructure. While we have done quite a bit in this area over the past few years, we can't rest. And then lastly, we will be unifying our current separate support practices for staff and students into a cohesive support model and experience under the Information Technology Department.
All right, for educational technology, we have 3 things we're specifically focusing on. Technology integration and curriculum is going to be very important as we roll out all the new curriculums and with all of the resources that we currently have. So one component of this that's going to be a big bonus for us is our educational technology specialists are actually being trained right now to actually assist and help with this transition. So we'll have all hands on deck for this. Our second component of this is going to be digital learning resources. So when it says investing in and expanding digital learning resources to support both in-classroom and remote learning initiatives, in talking to the department, specifically on this one, it's focusing on the current things we already have and really maximizing those first. So it doesn't mean adding a lot more resources. It's focusing on the resources we have. So for example, many of our district leaders had the opportunity to attend Apple Leadership Conference. And there, they actually showed us all of the different things you could do with Keynote is one example. And most people think of Keynote as a one-use tool. When they opened our eyes to all the things that you can do with that, that's what we want to do is as a educational technology department. We want to actually maximize all of the things we're currently doing and really hone in and do those well before adding on a lot of other things. There are new things that will come into play because of the changes we're making, but when it says expand, that's the goal, is expanding through training up our educational technology specialists to help out more, as well as maximizing all of the current resources we currently have. And the third thing is data, actually having a data analytics and reporting dashboard. This will be a game changer. Actually having data at the fingertips for everyone, specifically at the building levels, would be a game changer to be able to sit down and just automatically pull up on a dashboard information and review with your teachers, with your teacher leaders, in a PLC, in meetings, outside of meetings, or even with students. To be able to pull up a student's information would be, to have a dashboard would be key. So this is one of our 3 goals.
The last piece is safety. So our Director of Safety, Corey Fink, and Dr. Apgar will be working on resetting the threat assessment process, and we're looking at implementing a new tracking tool. So we're working through that right now over the summer. We intend on hopefully bringing that proposal back to the board in July. And then the development of CPR, AED, Stop the Bleed, Narcan training. We talked a little bit about that recently, and just that was really stemming from a conversation we had on board policy last month, I believe. Just establishing a more comprehensive list of staff who have been trained in each of these areas. We're continue to work on the fire suppression system installation. We are implementing NIMS training. We're starting with all administrators this summer. This is the implementation of a central command system. So last year when we had the bomb threats at 2 of our schools, this is really a tool that would have been helpful for us in managing that issue that we had that day, that threat. So that everybody has a role and everybody knows what they're to be doing in different instances. And this goes to larger scale issues like that, all the way down to smaller scale, even just, it could be just within a small school or a department, something like that. So we're looking forward to what that brings to the table with our safety training in the fall. And then we'll skip over that bullet point on the surveillance systems. I'll have an update on that for the board in the coming week here. And then the creation of a comprehensive manual of safety related SOPs for the safety department. Okay, so those are our strategies for this year. Next steps include identifying specific measurements of success. So you saw how we intend to measure each of the areas that we've identified for work for this year tonight, but we want to come back to our planning table to determine specific targets. So we intend to bring those back to the board in August. And then in September, we'll have our first monthly reporting to the board on how the work is going so far. We may be mixing up the reporting format a little bit. And we do intend on developing a dashboard for our website that will show our entire community how we're progressing in each of the areas that we've identified tonight. Anything you'd like to add? Okay.
No, it was thorough. So just, it was, the only thing is, I think you'll notice we moved away from process related metrics. There's a lot of, outcome based metrics, which I think it's easier for us to track. So very excited about the work, very excited about the team. I feel like all of our arrows are in the right direction. I'm feeling very good about where we're headed. So certainly we're happy to answer any questions you have.
How do you see measuring or staying with a goal engaged when the measurement would be potentially just one assessment, like the 5 essentials or something like that? How do you keep the energy in that goal?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at different measures. Like if we're looking at the 5 essentials, we do have a nice kind of year-over-year comparison with the reporting that we get from the schools. Now heading into next year at the elementary level, that's a little bit of a challenge because we're switching up the configuration. But we can, I think, really digging into the specific questions, and I don't know that we've ever really presented on the 5 essential survey to the full board and how that's broken down, but that might be something that.
Yeah, and we can also replicate certain portions of that assessment multiple times during the year. So we don't have to wait till the end to give the entire thing before. And I know we've actually had certain principals proctor certain portions of it that they wanted to target with their staffs, so we can do that multiple times.
And some of it this year will be a baseline year because we don't have the data and we'll be creating new reports. So then in the years in the future, we do have that comparison year over year.
So this is under the facility plan with Dr. Lamping. So under the measures, list the 5-year mechanical review, fix it. Under the inspection reports, is that also encompassing using our asset calc? Because that helps tell us life cycle of needs in the district.
So yes, the asset calc, the first 5-year mechanical review report, that is asset calc. We have to update it this year. But that is asset calc.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's what we're using, because we've made a significant investment in bringing in asset calc. Just want to make sure that, well, it didn't necessarily say it, it didn't necessarily have to, I just want to make sure that.
Right, that's what it is, asset calc.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Oh,
from the board?
no, I didn't know if
Please.
Scott had another one. Okay. It's the one with the alumni, of course, I'm gonna ask that one. Creating surveys to stay connected, and I gotta go back to find that one. The survey or that connection to alumni, are we? How do we see that? Because I know, develop a senior exit survey with school links and collect seniors' personal data and developing an alumni network. Is that a survey we're going to develop in-house and manage, or are we going to use an outside source?
That'll be done directly through School Links. So they have example like senior exit surveys. And of course we can add questions that we may want to add, but they have, it's a part of their platform that they provide like a sample senior exit survey. And we actually just recently heard from the ROE that they're working also with School Links to get our kids not only connected through alumni, but through, the goal is every business within Lake County. That more to come. We'll tell you more about that. I'm super excited, as you can tell. But School Links is what is the vendor will use to kind of give the sample survey started.
Will that be used to develop our alumni network as well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's it. I know it's pretty lofty. There's a lot in here, so I really look forward to the data that starts to come back. Bless you.
All right, thank you. Hearing no additional questions, I'll reiterate, definitely looking forward to seeing the results as we start getting the monthly feedback. So looking forward to that. All right, next up is a review of the FOIA report. Any questions from the board in regards to the attached FOIA requests? Hearing none. Next up is review of contracts less than 1,000. Looks like we had none there, so we'll just skip right over that and go straight into public comment. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment by participating here locally as well as by doing online public comment. Public comment is available online and is available up until noon on the regular day of the scheduled meeting. All speakers are limited to 3 minutes. A link to the electronic public comment form is online. We did not have any electronic public comment. Do we have any local public comment? Hearing none, we will then move on to the superintendent's report and Dr. Mendoza.
Would the board mind respectfully if we did the administrator introductions now? Is that okay?
Well, we need to pass first. We can't just introduce.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's correct. Pending board approval.
I was going to say, I think we forget.
Pending board approval.
Pending board approval. There's a few things that have been mentioned.
Yeah, normally that wouldn't be an issue. We have like a newborn back there, and
I agree.
Is that just obviously?
Well, if we want to do it that way, just for the sake of transparency, what if we just jump to the consent agenda?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We can't introduce people officially
Yep.
if not
Yep.
been
Thank you.
approved. We can manipulate the agenda here. All right. All right, moving ahead with the consent agenda, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items for the accounts payable report for $3,210,346.18. The previous motions report for $225,852.19. The May 2024 treasurer's report, the May 2024 P-card report, the June 17th, 2024 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Hearing no questions, roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
And the motion carries, which brings us to introduction of new administrators.
Very much appreciated, board, sincerely. Why don't we start with, let's do Sitlali first, or Casey, or how do we want to do it? How about if we do Sitlali last? Is that fine? You want to do it now? Okay, let's go. Brittany, well,
Now you do it.
let's do this. Dr. King, who's introducing Brittany? And then who's going to do Sitlali? Brittany? So let's do you to Brittany to Sitlali. Let's do it that way.
All right. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing three people this evening. One of three is Brittany Howard. So Brittany came from Kildare, where she taught every subject except for math, so don't ask her a math question. She was asked to be a coach there before we stole her away to be an assistant principal here. And since then, she has three beautiful kids. Her and her husband Jason have three beautiful kids. She comes from a service-oriented family. Her husband is a police officer, and her father is a police officer, and she follows in their footsteps of wanting to serve the community. That's how she works on a daily basis, is act of service. One of the things that Brittany loves to do is she just loves to solve problems. She's really good at solving problems. It could be small or big; it doesn't matter. There's no task too small or big for her. One of the things when I asked her, what are you most proud of at McGee is the culture and climate that we built as a team, but truth be told, she was at the forefront of all of it. The way she thinks to engage students and staff together along with community members and actually get people to come together in a united front for different things is she has a special talent for that. She's excited to grow new leaders at McGee. When I said, what is the most important thing to you as a new principal? She wants to continue to grow new leaders, to continue the legacy of great leadership at McGee Middle School. She is currently getting her doctorate, and three words that staff describe Brittany were, and she does not know this, are savvy, loyal, and driven are the three words that the staff actually used. Super excited for Brittany to be the next principal at McGee Middle School, and it's in really good hands.
So real quick, the way this works, everybody, is after you get introduced, say a couple words, and then do the roundabout, and then we'll go to the next person. Okay?
Okay, I just wanted to take a moment and thank everyone here for this opportunity. I've absolutely fallen in love with this district and this community, and I am so excited to start this next chapter and see what the future holds for us. So thank you all.
Sitlali, you get a pass on the U here, so you're good.
All right, so now I have the privilege of introducing Sitlali Flores as the new Assistant Principal of Student Services at McGee. Sitlali has been in the district for the last 7 years. She was at Murphy for 4 years as a bilingual teacher in both 3rd and 4th grade, and then the past 3 years she's been Dean of Students here at the high school. She's also a very dedicated mother, as you can see right now. She also has another beautiful daughter who's 2 years old who's not with her today. A few words that have been said over and over and over again about me talking to people in district, trying to get to know who Sitlali really is as a person, is someone who jumps in with both feet forward, someone who's not afraid to take on new challenges. I've been told repeatedly that she's exceedingly dedicated and exceedingly good at building relationships, not only building those relationships, but also maintaining them. Because of all of these characteristics, I truly believe that she's going to be an asset at McGee, and I am very excited to welcome her on the team.
Brittany, do you want to hold the, why don't you hold the mic for her?
Thank you everyone for the opportunity. I look forward to working further with the district. I do very much enjoy the families and the relationships that I have built here, so I hope to continue that in my next journey.
And congratulations.
And McGee thanks Brian for being so gracious to, as soon as McGee had an opening, Brian called over and says, well, I got somebody for you. She's amazing. And then Dr. Apgar called 15 minutes later and says, we got somebody for you. So that's the homegrown. It's really nice. So it's awesome to see the great things that Sitlali did at the high school, and then for her to want to come down to the middle school and continue that is super cool. So my next person is Kai. Kai, you want to join me? So I'm not going to mess up her last name.
Michopoulos.
You stole it from me. I had it written down phonetically. Phonetically. So Kai Michopoulos is the future associate principal at Village Elementary School, and then soon to be, and then principal in waiting. So waiting on Dr. Tomei to leave. She loves it. I told him today I was going to say that. I was like, when are you leaving? Because Kai's ready. Just kidding. So Kai actually comes to us. She's been with us for a couple of years now, but before that, she was a coach also at Grays Lake. We love coaches, and when I say coaches, not athletic coaches, but academic coaches who really invest in teaching and training and helping all this everybody on staff actually help students. So it's really cool to see the coaches flourish and become administrators. Kai and her husband have 2 amazing kids. They're all exhausted because they just got back from Disney. So when I talked to Kai today, it was hard for her to put her words together. So the thing that Kai is most proud of at Village the last 2 years is the restorative practices that her and Casey put into practice. Their discipline referrals went down dramatically, and their student engagement went up equally. So it was very impressive, as noted by their huge success in their 5 essential scores. Kai personally loves professional development. She would, instead of Disney, if she could do PD, she would probably do that. She loves PD that much. She does want to get her doctorate one day soon. She's looking forward to a principal keeping the same high standards that her and Casey had set at Village with the new staff and students coming in from the partner school. Really looking forward to establishing that culture. And then the 3 words that were used to describe Kai from her staff are: she's very detailed, passionate, and she is also driven. So we have some very driven people. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I rambled last time, so I wrote it down this time. Thank you to the Board of Education for this opportunity. I'm honored by your trust and look forward to continuing to serve Village Elementary School and the Round Lake community with the same dedication I have for the past 2 years. I also want to say I really appreciate having been able to work with Casey for the last 2 years. I've grown tremendously as a leader under her guidance and mentorship, and I'll miss her greatly.
Last but not least for me is John Randolph, who could not be here this evening because he is in Banff National Forest up in Canada. And if you follow him on social media or if you've seen any of the pictures, it's amazing. He's having a great time. So he's up there relaxing before he comes back and gets to work. So John is super excited to announce bring John to you as the new principal at Round Lake Middle School. Before John actually is becoming the principal, he was a teacher at Round Lake Middle, so this is full circle for him. That's one of the things he's most excited about. Specifically, I don't want to forget to say this. When he got the job, when Dr. Mendoza came over and surprised him, his reaction was priceless. He literally, a day later, I said, what's your goal and what's your dream now? He goes, just to retire from Round Lake Middle. He goes, I've always just wanted to go back to Round Lake Middle and make a difference. So pretty cool for him. So John was a teacher at Round Lake Middle. Then he was a CNI specialist. He was an assistant principal at Indian Hill. And then he joined me at McGee as an assistant principal of CNI, where he did a masterful job bringing staff together. John and his wife have an amazing daughter who's followed in their footsteps. She's also military. So John and his wife are both retired military, and their daughter is working her way up through the ranks quickly. So she is also military. So super proud of her. When I asked John, what are you most proud of? The thing he said is he's most proud of the collaborative practices that he's established for students and staff in the building. So our staff has always been collaborative, but John has put systems in place that just lend to easy conversations on a daily basis instead of a weekly basis or a PLC basis. They're just constant collaborative conversations, which are really cool. So he's also excited to put something very similar in place at Round Lake Middle. John loves data. He's a nerd. He's so excited about the dashboard and what he can do with it. John is also, I asked John, what are you most excited about being when you're the principal, when you're actually in charge? Because he acts like he's not in charge, but I think he is usually in charge, with Gisela, of course. But John is very excited to build collaborative relationships because he has relationships from being there, but going back in a different role and capacity to inspire those people, but also build collaborative relationships with the others is what is really driving him right now. He did start, like Brittany started her doctorate last year. John is starting his doctorate in the fall. That was before he found out he was going to be a principal, because that was a surprise. And the 3 words that are described, that staff used to describe John are honest, loyal, and genuine. Which he was super excited to hear, because I did go let him know this before I told you. So congratulations to John Randolph.
Just making sure Jeff was finished. I have with me Casey Kurtz. I'm really excited to have her jumping on as a member of our team in teaching and learning. So a little bit about Casey. Casey has her bachelor's degree in elementary ed with an English language or an ESL endorsement from Roosevelt University, a master's in literacy with a reading specialist endorsement from Concordia, and then a master's in educational leadership from Northeastern University with her principal certification. She is heading into her 16th year, so she's Round Lake teacher alum like myself, so I like that piece. She's starting her 16th year in education, but 13th year here in Round Lake. As in Round Lake, she was a classroom teacher and then a reading interventionist at Ellis for 7 years. Then she moved into the AP principal position, or assistant principal position at Village, followed by principal, where she has been for 5 years. When we talk about something that she's super proud of, that I would argue we're all super proud of, is the 5 essentials data, which has come up between her and Kai. They are again listed as a organized school, and this year no areas for that were listed for any weak areas. So that is super exciting. I don't know if we've ever had that happen, at least in the 21 years I've now been in Round Lake since they've had that survey. So that's super exciting. Casey will be taking over school improvement. So for me, that is, clearly that connection, right? She kind of has an idea of how the survey works. She knows what we need to be looking at when they were talking about Kai and that understanding of school culture. I think Casey brings a lot of that to the table and understanding the community. So that's a really big piece space we're excited about. Her areas of just kind of personal interest in education are obviously around literacy, having that reading endorsement specialist, which will be a big benefit moving into new curriculum adoption. She also loves data. I'm not going to use that word that Jeff used, but we're all that way. We're all educators, right? And focusing on school improvement and school culture and climate. Personal interests for her, she likes to spend time outdoors with her husband Kevin, and she has a 4-year-old son Luke that we always have fun stories between sharing stories about our sons, and then also a dog, Marley, which is a great name. So that was kind of where I've got for Casey. So I did not ask staff what you thought of you. So sorry, Jeff didn't tell me that was an expectation, but we're really excited to have Casey. So please welcome her.
It's okay, Jeff calls me a nerd all the time, so we don't need to say it tonight. I just briefly want to extend my gratitude to each of you for approval of my new role as the Director in Teaching and Learning. Serving the Round Lake community for the past 12 years has truly been an honor, and I'm grateful for all the diverse roles I've had the privilege to undertake. Internal growth, as we've heard through the strategic plan and development of one's career within an organization, is a very unique experience. It's a testament to our district community's values that such opportunities exist, and I'm truly thankful for the faith and guidance that have been afforded to me as I embark on a continued journey with the district.
All right, so there's one left. I get to introduce Dr. King. I won't be as long, I promise. Just very, very humbled and privileged to be able to introduce Dr. King. As of September 1st, will be our Assistant Superintendent of Schools. He will provide oversight on a day-to-day basis to all 10 of our schools, 11 to count the Early Childhood Center, and then also is overseeing the Human Resources Office. I have bifocals, but I have to remove them also. But just a couple things about Dr. King. Very, very family-centered individual. His whole family are educators. His wife is a psych in St. Charles. Alana just graduated from Hope College with a double major in psych and social work, and she's now going to be getting her master's in which one? Social work. And then Maggie, his youngest, is in college, and she's going to be an elementary school teacher. He has over 20 years of administrative experience, most of which has been as a principal. And that's pretty unique, getting at this point in your career, having 20 years as a principal. And most or all of his experience, I should say, is in very large school districts, similar to many of which have been larger than Round Lake. One thing that I do note about Jeff on a personal level is he tries to find a way to say yes with his family. He'll do things like, his daughter will call and say, let's go to the softball World Series in Nashville. He'll say, when? Tomorrow. Boom, they're gone. He does that with concerts. So trying to find a way to say yes, I think I've learned a little bit about that. I think his passion is developing other leaders and helping people grow. I might miss one, but you have Casey Kurtz here, who's grown up through the system. She's worked for Dr. King. Sarah Swanson is now a principal. She's worked for Dr. King. Both John Randolph and Brittany Howard have both worked for him. So he's really skilled at helping people grow and develop into new roles, I think, which is why I think he'll be great when working with our 10 principals on a day-to-day basis. He takes pride in his work ethic. He's very collaborative, very good problem solver. These are things that I've observed in my time with him. And you may or may not remember, but he actually has been at Pleviac, Village, McGee, and now he's moving into a different role. And it's important to note that he never asked for any of those moves. I went to him, and that's how I do it. Usually I think I put a little pressure on Dr. Steffen and maybe Miss Bennett when they moved. But generally it's, hey, I think you might be good for this. It's something of interest for you. And he's a team player and said yes right away. So very grateful for that. And I think his favorite thing about the district are the people. And I know that he has said often that he can't imagine working anywhere else. So I'm very honored and privileged to present Dr. King, who will have a dual role for probably a couple months, but will be replacing Dr. Rowling, who we'll definitely miss. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Jeff King.
I'll keep it short, but it's sincerely just grateful and humbled for the opportunity. I mean, I look around the room at all the talent that in the district, and it's just to be held in the same esteem as everyone else is truly an honor. I mean, I come from a small town in the middle of nowhere, and I just don't really take no for an answer. It's the way I was raised, and the opportunities that I've been afforded here, just really appreciative, and will remain humbled. And honestly, when Don said, "Is this something you'd consider?" What made it easy to say yes is my love for the people in Round Lake, but specifically the team that I would be leaving a team which is very difficult, but gaining another team of allies sitting over here. It is what made it easy. So really appreciative of the opportunity.
All right, well, from my tracking, that takes us backwards to number 5 and the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank
Dr.
you,
Rindo?
Board. And again, I sincerely thank you for mixing up the agenda. I really appreciate it. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to 3 District 116 team members for their presentation at the Edward Lake County Regional Office of Education Mini Summit. Dr. Apgar and Mr. Peterson co-presented on restorative practices, and Murphy Teacher in 2023 Lake County Educator of the Year, Jacob Wallner, served on a panel titled Leading in Our Schools. I heard from many attendees directly that day during the presentations that our team represented our district at an exceptional level. So I want to thank two of you are in the room tonight. Thank you so much. Wanted to update you on one of our projects, the whiteboards. Which is largely being funded by Title I's, is the replacement of whiteboards in 4 of elementary schools. Ellis will have 68 whiteboards replaced in 37 spaces. Murphy will have 42 whiteboards replaced in 21 spaces. Beach will have 31 whiteboards replaced in 15 spaces, and Indian Hill will have 8 whiteboards replaced in 4 spaces. We are working with Midwest Environmental Consulting Services on the process to remove selected whiteboards at Beach and Indian Hill, as 13 spaces have tested and are confirmed to contain asbestos within the glue holding the boards. We will provide an update on the removal, abatement, and installation process in the board's weekly this Friday. Gently say I gave all of you a book. Just a little background on this. This is the homework for the entire administrative team. Just a little bit of background about why we chose this. We spent a lot of time at in my opinion, I think it was one of the best days I've had in 12 years in the district, being with our tremendous leadership team and talking about strategic planning and planning for the future and generating ideas. It was just really a great experience. And we did, and I led it. I mean, we have to increase our knowledge of and where we're headed with artificial intelligence. In my experience, and this is through my numerous networks, districts are usually taking one of 2 approaches. One is, and I'm going to say this respectfully and keep it very simple, no way, we're not even touching that, kind of a closed door approach. The other option is more of an open door approach, not let's just go crazy, but we have to understand how it can be used as a tool. Even as educators, our students need to understand it. And I'll have more to say, and I'm going to bring more back for the board, but I want you to understand, I mean, we're talking about with guardrails, right? But in the end, if you look at any of the literature right now, that horse has left the stable and it's not going to come back. And right now, one of the top things employers are looking for are kids who've graduated college on a college-bound path that have been exposed to, at minimum, have been exposed to using AI as a tool. So this is a journey. It's going to be a long one, but we are establishing a district working task force to kind of establish parameters and where we headed with this. And there'll also be elements of educating our students and parents. And I just want you to know, like everything we do, we're going to do it thoughtfully and methodically. We'll keep everybody involved. I just want to give you two examples really quick of how it can be. During the retreat, we did an activity which I usually do it with big Post-it notes and little stickies, and you put them up there. It literally was generating ideas for how to, literally the goal for me is to have every single employee by the end of the year be able to tell me what the mission statement is. Like every employee, every custodian, electrician, teacher, whatever. So we were doing this activity. We probably had 9 different groups. Each one had a Post-it board. And then there were probably by the end of the activity, I don't know, 20, 25 stickies on each sheet, give or take. We did that activity, but we did it electronically. It was literally an electronic sticky you would drag and type in there. We literally took that, Kevin Counselor did, dragged it into an AI tool, and within 5 minutes, it had every single one of those categorized with a title on it. That would have taken me probably 2 hours to do. Another example, I was sitting with Liz, and we were talking about, it was her idea, just how can we better prepare every employee for the change process. It doesn't matter what the change is. It could be grading. It could be a curriculum adoption. It could be a new HR practice. It could be partner schools. But if you look at any of the literature on change, the components are usually the same. So we started talking, and I said, wouldn't it be great? I asked the question, I said, Liz, do you think you could operationalize it, like in writing, the change process? And she said, absolutely. And so when she left, I basically went into an AI tool, and I typed this prompt: please provide me with a step-by-step process on how to manage the change process based on best practice and research, and also provide me with literature citations in APA style that support each step in the change process. I had it in 5 minutes, like 5 seconds. And I recognize almost all the authors that were cited in that change process. And it's not rocket science. It's assess the need for change, define clear goals and objectives, develop a change management plan, involve the stakeholders, all the things that you go through in your jobs. So part of why we're reading this, number one, it's very simple. I like books that are, mechanics for dummies. Like, because I'm lucky I can change the tire on my car. I saw this individual speak at the Lake County Partner Breakfast. He has been in front of Microsoft, Google. I think he's on an AI board of directors at MIT. It's a really easy read. The administrative team is going to read it, and I just wanted you to have it because I think it's something that even school boards should be aware of that's coming. And I'm sure all of you that have attended these national conferences, CASBA, it's there. So we, in my opinion, this is my closing statement, I feel like if we don't do this, we actually are harming our kids that are leaving us over time. So I just wanted to give you a copy. I'll make sure the other 2 board members get them. You're not going to be quizzed or anything. It's just, I think it's I read it last week, very easy read, all intuitive stuff, nothing that you haven't probably heard before, but I wanted to get that in your hands. So that actually concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Any additional questions for Dr. Mendoza? Hearing none, we will move to committee reports. We had a finance committee today.
Yes, thank you. Quite a lengthy one. I'll go through all the agenda items and I'll speak or inform if I'll speak later because they're on our regular board items further down. The organic life presentation, which you already heard. Again, as was mentioned in the presentation, due to the bid process, which we'll kind of speak to as well as later, this presentation was happening a month later, but it worked out to our advantage because we got to get the full year. So as long as the board is not against it, we'd like to keep it that way so we can get the full year. So we just, move it a month later, but it is nice to get all the data. Great, I appreciate that. As you heard, we had the hearing for the fiscal year 24 amended budget. And as I kind of alluded to, it'll be later on the agenda, the food service bid. Also later on the agenda, we have the request for 1.0 FTE attendance dean and social worker. And then Solution Tree embedded coaching for our staff, and then Solution Tree principal virtual coaching. You kind of heard about it in the strategic plan update. We currently do use them. A Solution Tree, that is, the embedded coaching would be for our staff where they come on site, watch our professional learning community, and provide feedback to the principal, which kind of ties into the principal solution, sorry, it's getting late. Solution Tree principal virtual coaching component. So then they work with the principals so they can work with our professional learning communities. We had additional coaching stipends for girls volleyball and cheer. The discussion at finances. We need to see better quality in our programs. We know they've set up a rubric, if you will, of so many kids, they keep adding coaches, but when do we start working and looking at the quality of our programs? We're not really fighting for numbers anymore, at least not with all our programs. I know some of our programs are still fighting for numbers, but when do we start investing into the quality of the program? We know we've all gone to our games. We need to start investing into the actual programs. We're investing in our facilities to give our kids better facilities. We need to invest into the quality of some of those programs. So correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Mendoza, there's going to be a conversation with Dr. King, Mr. Karolzak, and Mr. Peterson, and let's start looking at that direction of bringing quality. Let's not just keep adding coaches, but let's look at the quality of the programs that we're offering. Track resurfacing, hard to believe, but that beautiful stadium we did is about 5 years old. So it's time, it's time to resurface the track. They did bring several options to us. The traditional, the black and white, and kind of a Cadillac painting it blue and gold does come at a very high cost, and we know we still have a lot of needs in this district. So the recommendation of support of finance is let's do the black and white. That's what we have. And also, there is a picture, if you did look in the finance agenda of it, trying to keep a certain aesthetic as well. That is at $90,000, and we do have the budget for that. Again, if you looked at the packet, it did speak to the, they call the Cadillac version. It is about $200,000, $190,000, even though they mentioned there is a free financing. As we kind of said, we're not buying a fridge from Best Buy, we want free financing. At the end of the day, it comes out of that bucket, and we still have needs that we need to serve. The Bloom board, I knew I was going to say it again, is later on the agenda. High school sound system. Back in March, the board approved to do the new sound system for the high school. And we've gone through that process. We have a vendor. They're working, Dr. Kibbins worked through language on that, so that has just now been solidified. Getting a PO to the vendor. There's waiting for confirmation that we'll hear back, that we'll get in a weekly update, that this can be completed over the summer or before the start of the next school year. So we'll get that to the board. And then the question is making sure that we protect that gym floor with those workers that come in with their equipment. Just making sure that gym floor is protected. And then later in the agenda is impact networking, copier, printer maintenance. The rest of the items were informational items for review. Of course, treasurer's report, P-card report, and then also in that informational items was the updated annual district renewal of contracts. Again, it's just making sure we're, if you review that, we added the column for funding type, whether PO or P-card. We do have some vendors, obviously, who don't accept PO, so we have to pay with a P-card. And then knowing who the department owner is. This gives us a good tally of everything that we have in the district. and where, especially with credit cards, as you know, when you put your credit card in for some of these subscriptions, even if it expires, they can still charge that credit card. So we need to make sure we're keeping track of that. So that's why we added that column. And that's it for finance. Any questions? Or Mr. DeVera?
I've got a question about the track. So is it every 5 years it needs to get refinished, or is it based on where?
So would we put in that? Yeah, Mary can do it too. Dr. Lamping.
Because here's the base of my question is, pretty much opened that and COVID pretty much happened.
Right, we did extend a year because of COVID, because we, just like, as you'll hear with some of the things coming up, like with the copier, we lost a year where we didn't use our copier machines. We didn't, I think we got, one game before we had to shut down. So we lost a year with the track as well.
But we also got to keep in mind that even though it was COVID and we weren't using it, the weather was still the weather. And that track is, and the same with turf, is going to be worn by the weather itself, whether we're using it or not. I know Dr. Lamping can attest to it, but they talked about a 20-year total lifespan. If you hit every 5 years of doing the resurfacing, it should get you to that full 20 years, etc.
Sure that we do, and that's why when we added asset calc, which is why I asked again in the strategic planning, is that asset calc helps us keep on track for those maintenance items, such as the life of that track.
I agree.
Thank you, Dr. Lamping. Includes finance.
All right, hearing no additional questions for finance, we'll move on to some approval of minutes.
Hold on, I gotta get the right agenda. All right, I need a motion to approve the May 20th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 22nd, 2024 board special meeting expulsion minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera. I'm giving this one to Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we think we've already
Yep,
done
and
intro.
that's going to take us to old business.
Yeah. I need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 amended budget.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any additional questions?
If I
Finance
could,
one?
if I could just, thank you. If I could just add again, we had the hearing with Dr. Kivens earlier. And now we have it here really for official motion by the, and hopefully approval by the board for that, as Dr. Kivens reported in our hearing. I need a motion to read the
No, we
motion.
already-
Sorry.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries. And that'll bring us to our first new business, which is the pre-approval of expenses related to board travel education.
All right, I need a motion to approve the expenses related to the Board of Education travel, meals, and lodging for the COSBA Federal Advocacy Conference.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Hearing no questions, roll call, please.
Who do we have going for that, actually?
Aye.
Just you, okay, I kind of assumed, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that's going to be a really good one in DC. I wish people's schedules had worked out better, but definitely understand. Let's go with the roll call.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Proposed changes and increases in clubs and activities offering in the amount of $44,797.05 in order to provide more opportunities for students at RLAS Community School District 116.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions, finance?
So this was reviewed at the last finance meeting. This was brought forward by Miss Cacciatore in regards to expansion for our elementary and middle school. We have them go back, give us a lot of information regarding just making sure that, again, keeping it the same as we move to partner school, offering more clubs or activities with the lower grades, again, helping to build skills and as their kids move into a middle school and high school. So again, with that partner school change, our middle schools, and then there was actually a decrease with the high school.
All right, hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the trip to participate in the Illinois State University Teen Camp on June 17th and 18th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. I'm just going to be the one to go ahead and call that out. So this is the approval for the trip that they're already at, and they're currently in Bloomington right now. So whether the approval happens or not, they're there.
That is correct.
And
So-
we're going to be working to rectify that.
Yes, I'm working with Mr. Carolzak to make sure we have all these tournaments and camps set up ahead of time and put on the normal schedule.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what Mr. Francisco says. We don't ever want to approve something that has happened that doesn't give the board its voice that it has.
That's understood.
All right, we would need to make sure that that does not happen again.
We understand that if I don't anticipate it's going to be a pattern, but it might be no, sorry, they can't go. We can't get in it.
It won't be a pattern because the next one that comes forward, it will be a no.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and-
the answer.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is this is totally, we understand, because I'm not qualifying it. We did, the only reason we left it on is because I hadn't heard anything. We did communicate it through the weekly, and I would have assumed if I would have pulled it off had I thought we didn't have support for it. It doesn't excuse it at all. We're very clear, we will fix it. We know what the consequence is that our kids lose out. We don't want that to happen.
Right, we don't want our kids to lose out, but there's a job that needs to be done here that wasn't. That's what we're trying to point out. So again, the message is it won't happen again because the answer will be no, and then our kids suffer.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yeah.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the addition of 1.0 FTE attendance dean at Round Lake High School to provide attendance interventions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Jewett.
So this item, again, was reviewed at finance. This is going to be a cost neutral for the high school. They are collapsing the French classes or world language and then trying to shift that FTE to an attendance dean to reach some target areas with attendance. In that memo, it gives those numbers. So we did ask, what is the high school trying to achieve? Obviously, attendance and tardiness is always a moving target and something we need to address and always have need to address. So we definitely asked for them to bring back some data. Also making sure that the loss of that position of the FTE in the World Language Department for that French is looking at what the schedule might be for the next year, because maybe they might need that FTE back. So again, it would be part of the budget assumption process if that FTE needs to come back with world language. But if they're able to collapse and it doesn't affect programming for our students, then I think this will be a good win for the high school to target our attendance.
Hearing no additional questions, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McKinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee? Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the addition of 1.0 FTE bilingual social worker to provide support for newcomer students at Village Elementary and Murphy Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee.
So again, this was on the finance agenda. This is the addition of social worker for Village and Elementary. As it speaks to, it's the newcomer. We've had an increase in our newcomers population. This is where we had a gap. So this is to support that gap. So we would have social work, again, all elementaries, the 2 middle schools, and the high school.
Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the resignation agreement and general release with tenured administrator.
So, second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Hearing no questions, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the Bloom Board contract for the 2024, 2025, and 2026 school years.
So moved.
Second.
So this, again, was at the Finance Committee. This Bloom Board contract is to support having in-district employees get their ESL and LBS, special education endorsement. They did a survey. They have 48 staff, 46 for ESL and 2 for LBS, or special education, learning behavior specialist. The things that came out of this for finance is while we invest in our employees, we want to make sure we also get a commitment out of that investment back from them. So it's a 5-year breakdown with like 20% for each year. So if they leave in that first year, they have to pay back 100. Then it's 20% breakdown after that. But again, we know the need that we have here in our district is having ESL, that English as a second language, and then LBS, the learning behavior specialist, which is special ed endorsements and staff. This will help as we move staff within the district and in the building. So again, it'll work just like our tuition reimbursement, where they have that 5-year agreement.
Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the Tableau agreement with customer computer specialist in the amount of $9,580.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera.
This was at the last finance meeting. Again, this is in Mr. Kozak's department. Again, we do currently use Tableau, and this is a 1-year license agreement.
Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yeah.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the 18-month Impact Networking Copier Printer Maintenance Agreement in the amount of $7,100.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera.
So again, this was on the Finance Committee agenda. This is our lease agreement for our copier and printers. This is a 18-month, so that the renewal will happen over the winter or fall semester. So that way when the teachers are leaving for winter break, then they'll get trained on that new equipment. They felt not doing it at the beginning of a school year when there's so much change happening. So that's why it's extended. We only pay for what we print. And again, as we spoke earlier, having that year of COVID, we didn't print anything.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion for the Board of Education to approve the food service bid to Organic Life commencing on July 1st, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Ms. Lee.
So again, this was on the Finance Committee agenda. There's as we know, our food service bid was up and we needed to go out. We had 4 bids come back. We no longer have to take the lowest bid as we had in the past. While this motion is for support of Organic Life, they were not the lowest bid. They also were not the highest bid. Dr. Kibbins did a great job vetting all the bids that came through. She created a rubric to go through references, their financials, the quality of food that they served, and Organic Life is the one that met all those rubric checks, and that is what we have before us.
Hearing no additional questions, roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the transfer of $25,000 from the Education Fund, Fund 10, to Debt Service Fund 30.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee.
And again, this is just the transfer of funds. This is official motion as we try to keep those fund balances in check. This is again the local property taxes for this specific one.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that's going to bring us to positive occurrences. Well, I'll throw it out there. We had a few minutes to be able to enjoy the volleyball team awards ceremony this evening, right before our board meeting here. So, got to see everybody with that.
I was gonna say the summer
Well, as soon
camps
as it
are going.
crosses 10 o'clock. We lose everybody here.
Summer camps are going. So.
Woo. Okay, yeah, and that's a good one. Summer camps are going amazingly well. Sadly, it feels like I'm driving to this campus like every 2 hours, but that's a different story. But no, really great. I've been able to see the volleyball, wrestling. I've seen the soccer camps going on. I've seen the cross country camps going on. Basketball's going in and out. So it's just good to see and then also seeing all the activity at the other schools as well, McGee, all around the district. So just it's a constant living, breathing environment. So thank you.
And guard and marching band out there practicing too.
All right, then next up is future agenda items. Anybody got a future agenda item they want to touch on?
Not really a future agenda item, but I don't know if Dr. Mendoza can let us know where we're at. I know we gave him a long list of future agenda items. Is there much left?
No, I think
Okay, I thought so, but I just wasn't
We-
sure. Give you a break now.
All right, then next up is approval of some closed session minutes.
I need a motion to approve the closed session minutes of May 6, 2024, regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett, Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, next up, I need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purposes of discussing the following. Real estate matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C5. Employment matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Security matters, 5 ILCS 120/2C8. And closed meeting minutes, 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Roll call, please.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yeah.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee.
Yes.
And that will bring us to the end of our open session for this evening. Thank you all. Thank you all online as well as those who are here. We will see you again next month in July for our next regularly scheduled meeting. Everyone have a great evening.